the numbers here kan. Memang we are targeting more on the quality of engagement and discussion. So saya serah kepada ni lah, mulakan Zam. Kita minta maaf semua, saya baca doa dulu lah untuk protect diri kita dan bagi semua majlis jadi okey. Saya minta izin semua, saya baca doa dulu ya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi. Allahumma inni nas'aluka salamatan fid din wal afiyata wa ziyadatan fil 'ilmi wa barakatan fil rizq wa tawbatan qabla al-maut wa rahmatan wa maghfiratan ba'da al-maut. Allahumma hawwi 'alaina fi sakratil maut wan najati minan nar wal 'afwa 'ala al-hisab. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul 'alim wa tub 'alaina innaka antat tawwab. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa Azza wa Masipun. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. Okey, Zam, silakan.
Okey, baik. Saya mulakan.
Okay.
Okey, baik. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera semua. Bertemu kembali kita dalam program yang diberi nama SAT, Sembang Atas Talian. Selamat datang kepada semua otai-otai, guru-guru, kawan-kawan dan para peserta pada malam ini dari saya, Afzal Nizam Muhammad Ali dan seluruh warga Muzium dan Galeri Tuanku Fauziah USM. Dengan impak fizikal dan mental yang terjadi di seluruh dunia akibat pandemik, ada satu ruang positif yang kita semua telah manfaatkan. Kini kita telah pun berada pada slot yang kedua. Berbeza dengan slot kuat, kuliah atas talian, SAT menampilkan satu format yang lebih cair, santai, bersahaja, banyak hala tetapi berstruktur, berilmiah dan berhikmah. SAT kali ini menampilkan dua orang tokoh yang dianggap adik guru dalam dunia seni kontemporari di Malaysia. Mereka adalah Prof. Hasnul J Saidon daripada USM Penang dan Niranjan Rajah, Asisten Profesor Simon Fraser Universiti Kanada. Sembang mereka akan ditemani oleh Rupesh Sesihatan daripada Multimedia Universiti Kuala Lumpur. Okay, Rupesh will introduce more about our guests and will host throughout the program. To the participants, please make sure your microphone is in a mute mode all the time, unless if you want to speak. Rupesh will brief us the format. This program is recorded and it is still not too late to share this live program with your friends or our enthusiasts. This also can be watched via MGTF Facebook. Those who are missed this also can view it through MGTF YouTube channel later. Traces, Legacy and Futures, a conversation on electronic art with Hasnul, J Saidon and Niranjan Rajah. Without further ado, I'll pass this WebEx session to Rupesh.
Okay, thank you Nizam. It's an honor to be here. Saya akan bercakap bercampur-campur bahasa Inggeris dan bahasa Melayu. And also as how Nizam has confirmed, it's a very casual conversation, and also it's not so much of too much indulging into some kind of a critical probing as such, although that could come up or emerge naturally as we go through. So first of all, saya ingin express my gratitude for having me. I think I'm also humbled in this situation to have such towering figures. I have known both of them for a very long time, and I still feel overshadowed by the sort of knowledges and the sort of ideas and exchange that I get every time I discuss and meet them. So with that, I count this as an opportunity to share some of the thoughts that I have regarding their practice and their achievements. And importantly, also this sharing hopefully will be beneficial for the people who are enthusiastic towards new media practice, and also the larger art scene and our nation at large. So I will start with a basic biography of both the panels that are here with me. Before that, let me first share my slide. 1 minute. Okay, here we go. Okay, semua boleh tengok
Okay.
Yep. Hold on Tadi dah okay lah. Yep. Okay. Okay. I will start by describing their biographies before entering into discussing some of the format of which we have structured the discussion today. Let me start with Prof. Hasnul first. So Prof. Hasnul, as all of you know, he's a familiar figure in the local art scene as well as the international arena of electronic art. So he was born in Teluk Intan, Perak in 1965 and received his initial diploma in painting from UiTM from 1984 until 1988. During his time in the university, he was exposed to Ismail Zain when he was a visiting lecturer for one of Prof. Hasnul's subject. Upon completing his studies, Prof joined Center Stage Performing Arts for a year before pursuing his studies in the United States in 1990. His undergraduate studies at Southern Illinois University and Masters of Fine Arts in Electronic Arts from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, RPI, saw him spending 3 years in the United States. During his time in the US, he moved from painting to new media art practice, as it is evident in his selection for postgraduate studies, which focused on technology-based art. Initially working as a lecturer with UiTM in 1993, he then moved to University of Malaysia, Sarawak, UNIMAS, to become the head of Fine Arts Department from 1994 to 2000. He met Niranjan Rajah during his time in UNIMAS, and in 2000, he joined Center for Advanced Design, CENFAD, for a year before moving to Universiti Sains Malaysia, USM, in 2001. Currently, he is serving as the Director of Galeri and Muzium Tuanku Fauziah, MGTF, at USM. Now, Prof. Niranjan, he was born in Jaffna, Sri Lanka in 1961. His early schooling years were spent in St. John Primary and Secondary School in Bukit Nanas, Kuala Lumpur, and at the age of 17, he left to further his studies in the United Kingdom. Initially, he studied economics and law at the University of Westminster while practicing art in London. Later, he pursued his passion for art by joining Goldsmiths College and completing his MA in Fine Arts in the year 1993. His return to Malaysia was ushered by a teaching job at UNIMAS in 1995. It was during this time that Niranjan first met Hasnul. During their time together in UNIMAS, they achieved many milestones in establishing the practice of new media art within the official narrative of Malaysian art history, some of which we shall be discussing later, some of these milestones here. During the 90s, he was also a board member in various national and international organizations on art, science, and cultural research. Prof. Niranjan left for Vancouver, Canada in 2002 and is currently serving as assistant professor at School of Interactive Arts and Technology, Simon Fraser University, Surrey, Canada. Okay, so these are the biographies of the two panels that I have here together with me. So let me now go into the structure that we are going to discuss today. Yeah? So as you can see, the discussion itself is titled called Traces, Legacies, and Futures. So accordingly, what we have framed upon our discussion among ourselves, we wanted to talk about it according to a certain kind of progression in terms of a particular timeline. We are using their practices as a guidance in going through some of the critical moments in the history of electronic art practice, as well as some of the critical events or important events that we deem crucial for actually establishing a particular sort of thinking, theory, concepts, ideas, and thinking about electronic practice and the use of technology in art practice. So accordingly, you can see from 2000, from the time of their return to the point where they both left, I put it as traces. In 2000, both roughly around that time, both of them left Unimas and moved on to different directions. And that's when I marked it as a dislocation, a moment where they departed, right? And then later on, they came back together to some extent. Partially, I was also involved in this initiative through an exhibition that we put up called Relocation that took place in Singapore as part of Isaiah. So that moment then is a moment where they came back together from 2000 to the moment of 2008 to some extent. We call it as legacy, like what took place after then from 2008 onwards, relocation, and some other consecutive events that took place. And from then onwards, we will then embark towards the third act of our presentation and in talking about some of the futures and some of the ideas or the current situation that we are facing in. So enough of me talking, I think. I think this is supposed to be a conversation, not a presentation or a lecture. But there is a lecture pula sekarang. So I think I want to straight go into the matter at hand, right? So I want to start by talking about traces. So this is something of a picture. I think I will start by Prof. Hasnul to talk about this. This is, again, I just want to put a note here, disclaimer. These images are not only collected by myself just to put together, yeah. These are also contributed by them, by others in thinking about the sort of discussion that we want to instill. Go ahead, Prof.
So apa soalan dia?
Soalan dia is like, what are we looking at here, this picture? This
Oh,
is,
okay. Gambar ni gambar daripada saya, kalau tidak silap saya, if I'm not mistaken, from 1999 during the second Cipta. Cipta.
mm,
Cipta is an acronym for Cetusan Inspirasi Pelajar Tahun Akhir, which is a brand sort of that I uh, I have created or name for apa tu, for Unimas punya final year students project exposition. For this one, for two chiptas, I think Niranjan and I think we co-created the show, and we were very critical towards the students, probably maybe at times over critical sometimes, because we were both curators, especially in regards to how the students present their final year projects. So we Niranjan can add to this. We place emphasis on how their research projects are presented. For us, it is very critical. Presenting your artworks is as critical as doing a research or engaging in a research. So it is an
maybe one
organic
thing.
part.
Maybe one thing I want to add is like one of the major component here, and one of the major documentation that we have are exhibition. So the emphasis was pretty much heavy on practice.
Yeah.
So curious in terms of that sense, like in terms of why do you feel the importance of practice to become part of the major component of actually expressing or documenting through exhibition, especially this sort of critical probing that you are talking about?
Okay. First of all, before I forget, uh, of course, we are talking about both of us, Niranjan and I, but I think we have to also look at us, both of us, in relation to the whole uh, educational ecology or habitat back then in UNIMAS, So that's why I mentioned and list down all these names, because they were also a part of the whole ecosystem, a very supportive ecosystem, and very critical. If without the support from Fauzan, I think Niranjan can attest to this. We won't be able to do things that we wanted to do. Fauzan, despite being traditionally trained as a painter, was very open towards our, critical inquiry, especially our interest in experimenting beyond the confine of painting. So it is also very important to have a team when it comes to engaging with something new and challenging, or engaging in a new in embarking on something new, on an unknown territory. Okay, back to your question. Practice and theorization comes hand in hand organically. It can be linear, but if you ask me, it is very organic. At times they are, entangled together, that can be very difficult uh, to isolate which one is practice, which one is theorization. As far as my relationship with Ranjan, uh, that sometimes when you have a particular uh, ambition, intention, the universe will provide. So at that time, I was having a problem articulating the theories. I learned some of the theories when I was in the States. I read many books, questioning modernism, blah, blah, blah. When I came back, I was having problem communicating the practice. And then, of course, universe provides. Ranjan came to Unimas. Of course, initially I quarreled with him. Probably remember, but he gave me the opportunity to sort of he became my macam mana nak cakap tu, my voice, because he's very good in articulating, especially the theoretical part of the practice. So my job is to keep on churning out and testing. So let's say I give an example. Niranjan will write about convergence. Okay, bro, you buat pasal convergence lah kan. So Niranjan will then goreng. Okay, and then and we need to have examples rather than samples from secondary data. We need primary examples. We cannot just, bullshitting about secondary data. So that's where I came in. I will infuse and test this theory of convergence or transdisciplinary or whatever uh, into practice, and I will infuse and test it in the class, in the structure of the class, in the design of the curriculum, in the design of the projects. So let's test this, whether it's going to work or not, and then we will ask the students, so macam mana, apa you rasa? And the students will reply back and give a feedback, quite phenomenological kind of reflection upon the test, the practical test. So the practice fits the theory, and the theory fits the practice. So in a very organic way. Sometimes you do something first, and then you theorize, and then you have new hypotheses, new questions. I think Unimas is a place where I literally tested so many hypotheses, so many assumptions, so many orang kata concepts. And the six years in Unimas, I was given a space to test, to explore, to make mistakes, to stumble, and you know
I think I want to pick up on Prof. Niranjan on this, right? Like I'm aware that your background coming from conceptual art and also more of installation and also painting, right? Driven to towards somewhat a traditional practice. So I want to hear from Ranjan in terms of like how did you actually get into this, and what was your perspective in actually participating in this journey?
Yeah, so it, actually I don't remember quarreling with Hasnul. Betul kan?
No lah, we were
Ada
just debating.
debating.
Yeah,
As far as I remember, it's very smooth from the beginning.
yeah.
But but the story of Unimas actually, in a way, we have to thank a rather sort of less popular figure right now who's not named, but the prime minister of the country at that time, and then the multimedia super corridor and the agenda that Malaysia had that was so far ahead of anything in Southeast Asia. Singapore may have had better infrastructure by default, but I don't think they had this kind of at least overt vision. Maybe covertly they were already steaming, we don't know, but we had a stated objective that was like an example in Asia, other than East Asia, the rest of Asia, we were way ahead. And Unimas, I believe, was the sort of the test bed, the training ground for this scenario. We had infrastructure and equipment that people from England would come and visit and say, oh my God, SGIs. And, we had internet speeds that were quite superior to many places in the world. And so we had also faculty, international, lots of international faculty from technology, from various disciplines. We had a medical school, everything, right? And so the leadership so the next thing is the leadership in the university, who are listed here. One Zawawi and Ghazali Ismail, they were like super supportive. And then the deans, Fauzan was our dean, Zawawi was our dean, and they were all supportive of this kind of really open inquiry. So this is the context, right? So how do I come into this? So I'm finished at Goldsmiths, and I have my master's, and I really don't see myself going to become a teacher per se. I really want to be a practicing artist. But I did find, and maybe this will come back, this issue will come back when we go into futures. But I did find that my interests in art were not in line with what the London scene required. The mainstream of the scene was, although very esoteric in some ways, very theoretical, very sophisticated, it was still a market, right? It's a marketplace, highly sophisticated marketplace. And much of what I was doing didn't seem to interest the market. And I also wasn't interested in shifting my work towards the gallery scene or whatever. So also, I was finding not much scope for, even small teaching jobs or survival jobs, because mainly, my network was in Goldsmiths, but I had fought with a lot of people in Goldsmiths about issues and ideas. And I wasn't that popular amongst the people that might give me a teaching gig at Goldsmiths at the time. So I was wondering what to do. And my mom said, oh, look, there's a new university, you can come home. I said, no, I'm here. But she sent all the papers and I saw, oh, it looked interesting. I just applied. And then they took me because I have a degree in economics and law and also art. They put him in art school and get him to run the arts management program. That's why I'm standing up. I'm not sitting with the gurus, right? Why I'm standing up in this picture is because this is the fine art program. Those are the gurus. I'm the visitor, a guest from arts management, right? So I got in on that basis. And I ran the arts management program, and we did good stuff. I mean, we produced some quite important figures in Malaysian art from Unimas Arts
Over
Management.
here, you're sitting down actually, in fact, at the same level.
This one is a different show.
Yes, it's a
The
different show.
previous one was the degree show.
Yeah.
Okay, that one came later, 1988, first chapter, second chapter, 1999. Third one, I don't know, I wasn't there probably. This one in 97, very busy year for all of us. 97, this one is called Explorasi, and it was done in Petronas Galeri back then at the Dayabumi complex. So this one we did with the first batch students. You can see Helena's song there, few others, and Said actually came from UITM, and Liza there also from ITM. All these are now lecturers. Of course, Helena has already migrated to Australia.
Yeah.
Again, you see there. Of course, I know Niranjan is. By the way, Niranjan was not in the. We didn't call a fine art. We didn't have a fine art department then. We call it integrated art department.
Integrated, yeah, betul.
Yeah, okay. I think I have to go back a bit ya, apa ni Rupesh ya. So Gustan balik backstory sedikit lah supaya ada konteks bagus ya. By the way, I love this picture because mainly now it's very difficult to have Fauziah and Niranjan and I together again. So you sort of say okay.
Maybe that requires another conversation session.
Maybe lah kan. So it will be very interesting lah because for me this is a match made in langit lah kan. Satu appointment yang dibuat di langit lah kan. Jarang lah kita dapat peluang begini. Dan Fauzan pula guru saya. He was my lecturer kan. And then he was of course I don't know, we have to ask him lah. But he wasn't threatened by me coming in and saying, oh kita ada something gadget baru, kita buat style baru pula bos. Kita combine painting dengan video. He was not like, alah, this is not. He wasn't reject. He was very supportive. So we have to be very thankful. And yet he is he still stick to his painting. It's not like he's totally changing himself into electronic artist. Okay, I have to go back a bit. Ranjan from Goldsmith. Of course, you know lah, Goldsmith. I don't want to cakap banyak lah. Go to Goldsmith. You both went to Goldsmith. Ni orang banyak kepala besar memang go to Goldsmith. Kan? Yang putih pening-pening semua go to Goldsmith. Hayati Mauta go to Goldsmith. Apa lagi yang go to Goldsmith. Anyway, I don't know about that. I was from Rensselaer. 1992, 93.
93, yes.
Yeah, I was one of the 8 guinea pigs for a program that was the first one introduced to the world. It was called Integrated Electronic Arts at Rensselaer, or IEL at Rensselaer. It was a very pioneering program at that time, 1992-93. Even by US standards, they were at the forefront. So I was doing my bachelor's in fine art then in Southern Illinois University in Illinois, and I saw the poster MFA in electronic arts. Of course, I was very bored doing painting again and again and again. So I was supposed to do my master's in painting. But then without consulting the JPA, Jabatan Pelajaran Malaysia, JPN or something, I just sort of hentam saja terus apply this MFA in electronic arts. Sounds so canggih and maybe interesting lah. So I just cuba lah because before that I applied for several places, got rejected. Baltimore, tempat Fauzan pergi painting. So all when I asked them why was my application rejected, they said you're not an artist, you're not a painter. All of them told me the review of my portfolio says that I was not a painter, so I can't be a painter. So I have to do something that maybe not anywhere, but in between. So I went to this MFA, I applied. Suddenly I tak tahu somehow I dapat. I was one of the 8 orang pioneer. Semua daripada different program. So I learned at that time lah kan. At that time it was already at the cutting edge. During that time, Chicago Arts Institute saja ada satu dipanggil time-based art. Okay. And then ada satu lagi di California. I don't know. I forgot what's the name of the university. So I studied video art activism, computer art. I studied computer music. I studied electronic performance and some other theories. So those became my foundation and milestone. So I came from that. So can you imagine? I came back 1994 straight to ITM. Suddenly I had to teach drawing. and tintering. Jadi saya waktu tu saya muda kan, belagak, sombong. Kalau saya ada sekarang, saya berjumpa dengan saya masa muda, mungkin saya tampar lah kan. Belagak langkah ni kan. Kerek, semua orang saya gaduh, semua orang saya kata tak pandai, tak sehebat saya. Sebab saya tahu macam-macam yang baru kan. But I was so excited about the new things. I was planning to share with Pak Mael, but Pak Mael pass away. I came back, I lost Pak Mael. Kak Norma yang layan saya. Ada satu paper cutting before this, I forgot. Maybe you forgot to put it. Amir Muhammad wrote about me. That was the first one. Kak Norma yang set the appointment. Kak Norma Nondin. Saya kata saya tak ada siapa nak tunjuk video art. So Kak Norma kata apa benda video art ni? Video art pun orang tak berapa tahu. Waktu tu hanya Hoi Chong, Liu Kung Yu, Ray Lagerbeck did few lah experimentation back in 1988, 89, 1990. So when I came back, I didn't have anybody to show. So I showed to Amir Muhammad. He wrote a review. And after that, somehow Fauzan lah bagi tahu ada interview untuk Unimas. I came in and they said, Hasnul, we have a blank canvas. Create a program that didn't exist in the whole world. So where you mana you dapat punya training? Saya cakap ITM. Okay, whatever yang ITM sudah ajar, you jangan ajar. Okay, our ITM sudah start buat fine art berapa tahun dulu? Saya kata around 20 years ago. Dia sudah lari 20 tahun lebih cepat daripada kita. Kita boleh kejar, dia kata. So you create something new. That was the mandate. With Prof Charlie, saya ingat lagi dalam bilik tu dengan Zawawi. So dia orang kata, Hasnul, we gave you blank canvas. Can you create a new program? Doesn't exist in the world. Yang tidak wujud di dalam dunia ni lagi. Saya seronok lah. So when I came in, I came in also almost sama rasa macam Ranjan. I felt like I wasn't belonging to anywhere. Yalah, kita buat sound art lah kan. Masa tu sound art pun tak ada siapa nak layan. Kemudian baru ada Koli Kwang dengan Kamal Sabran. Sebelum tu saya seorang yang buat sound art ni kan. So
betul Prof, like for example now here we're looking at Jimbori Rimba, correct me if I'm wrong, right? What picture about? I think that was also a pioneering sort of a collaboration, right? International collaboration of actually bringing practitioners from the US, if I'm not mistaken.
Ya, ini saya punya, ini Butter McLean, saya punya Viva Masters punya, apa dia panggil, ahli jawatan kuasa Viva saya. Saya bawa mereka, saya dapatkan research grant. Saya tak lupa berapa jumlah grant dia. So dalam grant itu saya bawa mereka ni, dalam course grant itu saya bawa mereka daripada US, suami isteri, untuk set up. Dan mereka ni dilantik pula untuk setahun jadi pensyarah sambilan. Kerja dia untuk set up the audio studio, the sound studio, the digital music studio. At that time, it was supposed to be done by Hasnizam, but Hasnizam went to do his, I don't know, master's or PhD. So it was left to me, but Hatta Zahana said to me, okay, Hasnul, you have to set the studio. So we set this.
Another thing, Prof, like I want to ask both of you in terms of the importance of institution. I mean, one of the major things like this was made possible is because you had a strong support from institution. Like you said, a blank canvas can. So I really want to know what is your take on the role of institution actually really pioneering certain kind of new practices or even exploring new ideas that are not common or acceptable at this moment in time, maybe in the future, right? This is really looking towards the future. At least that's what I get. Like when you refer back to all this infrastructure,
Ranjan can explain that. Our relationship with
institution.
Not so much of the dean. The dean was the first one. Hatta very supportive, and then Kiri also very supportive. They didn't it's like they didn't impose themselves. They didn't put themselves in between what we want to do. They didn't have that attitude. So they was just okay, do your stuff. Our relationship then was with the VC. Directly, tanya Ranjan. Maybe Niranjan can explain that better than me.
Yeah, I think again, the idea that the vision, we were fulfilling a small part of a bigger vision, right? Yeah. That happens to suit us. For me, I didn't even come with a new media agenda. right? I came as a conceptual installation artist and using photography, found materials. And I also want to say something about the three of us, Hasnul, me, and Fauziah. In a way, I mean, it's simplification, but one could say, that in that combination that Hasnul was praising, Fauziah kind of represented the material,
Yeah.
and the hard sort of practice element. Hasnul was the media, the kind of actual technology, the edge, representation within the electronic medium. And I brought a broader theory and found it very appropriate moment to focus that theory down onto this junction, between medium, practice, new medium, old medium, and theory. And the thing about the school and the institution, as to answer your question, is that they found it really exciting. They really supported us, and we were getting the university to the place that it wanted to be. So there was a synergy, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have any trouble in those first 4-5 years. It was perfect. Everything was good. Whatever we did, they allowed and they supported, and we did good for them. We did what they wanted, right? And you'll see the examples of what we achieved.
We brought
Um,
Another thing,
I remember, sorry, I remember during I was an interview. Maybe Niranjan went for interview. I was tricked to go to interview. I received a call. I received if I'm not mistaken, because this long time ago kan. I received a call from Fauziah. Fauziah say, Hasnul, kau kat mana Hasnul? Aku saya dekat Damansara. Dekat lah tu. Pergi jalan je. Ada pejabat Unimas. VC dia nak jumpa. It was like, VC nak jumpa, VC Unimas. So, and then I saw people, wearing all the tie dengan semua tu kan untuk interview tu. Tapi saya pergi setelah semua orang habis di interview dan saya masuk bilik, I went to the room, blah blah blah, and then macam-macam discuss. I still remember telling them, if mereka tanya begini, so what is your vision? I said, I will put Unimas on the international map. I said, I will only, that was my promise to them. I will put Unimas into the international map. So luckily, waktu tu saya cakap dengan cakap besar, saya muda kan, belagak lah, sombong semua. Kalau saya tengok diri saya sendiri pun saya nak tampar kan. But somehow itu fitrah budak muda, orang muda kan. So I was very, apa orang kata, enthusiastic about achieving something. So I promised them I will bring Unimas into international map, and we did with Niranjan, everybody, with the students. We participated in Asia Pacific Triennale.
Correct. We have slides, we will go into that. I just want to return back into the question of this. I don't want to say opposite, but this kind of roles, right, between a practicing artist and being an academic. That's also becomes a major sort of underlying tone in both of your practices, right? You're both seen as these figures of academic stature as well as this sort of practicing artists. So I also want to know in terms of like how important was it for you all in terms of now retrospectively thinking to play this role as an academic as well?
Oh, okay. Siapa jawab dulu? Niranjan.
If I can say, because in my case, if you remember, I was trying to show that my journey to Unimas was compromised in a way. It was a big compromise. I wanted to stay in London, but I got a great job in Malaysia. I wanted to practice art, like that was it. I was focused, and then I ended up being head of arts management, right? And I took it. And it turned out to be great because right next door was Hasnul and Fauziah and all this action that was going on. So I was happy, but I did find that what was more attractive about me to everybody, Unimas, they hired me for this, the Balai, they took me towards curatorship, right? What I wanted to do wasn't happening as fast as other things happening for me. So I didn't resist. I just followed. And so I had all these opportunities to curate and theorize. And then it became, I hadn't been an academic before. I didn't know what that is, right? So not a university professor anyway. I've taught before at Stanford, taught law and stuff. So then that became the academic work, that the curatorship and the theorizing, which I had started doing before. So I was perfectly happy with that. But in the back of my consciousness is the sense that, okay, art is not happening. When will I make my art? And I did manage to make some art during this time, but it was not a consolidated practice. And now looking back, I'm so grateful that it was broken up like that for me, because I got this broad exposure, and my approach is not so much centered on making being an artist, making art or being an artist, but the field as a whole, contributing to the direction and the flow and the ideas in the field as a whole. And so that's kind of the same, it's my personal story, but it's also this idea of praxis, right? Theory, practice, writing, publication, production, exhibition. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's just different modalities.
Yeah,
One of
that's
the
correct.
reason why I brought this issue is like thinking about how this has been framed in the current moment, right? We are always have to struggle between this practice, trying to find some kind of acknowledgement of our practice within the academia, right? But what is interesting in the proposition that you're saying is like it, the academia actually embraces the practice, right? The practice becomes part of your research,
Oh
part
yeah,
of the sort of your academic output,
yeah.
rather than like the academia demanding a specific kind of
So okay,
format
so
or
sorry, I'm going
yeah,
to keep going, because this is a real problem. Actually, this
right,
is not what I was saying is an ideal that happened for me in Unimas, and
right,
maybe for Hasnul and for a few of us at that time, at that moment. But this is
right,
not how the real life of
Mm.
other people's experience. In fact,
yeah,
I would say that generally universities, not just in Malaysia, I haven't been there since 2002 working there, but I'm speaking of throughout the world. It seems to me that art within the university, art school within the university, tends to, what's the word, contain, terkongkong lah seni,
terkongkong,
di
right,
dalam
constraint,
apa ni, dalam constraint of academia. So it becomes research. Right, the operational mode is, you get your money, but you get lots of money. But artists can't get money. University artists can get a lot of money, but for what? For research. What the money people want you to research. So
yeah,
then you fit your art under that, and then you get shows because you got budget. You can have show, you can produce. Okay, great. So all practicing artists throughout the world from university.
right,
Lain ni,
yes,
different kind of output. Kan?
yeah,
Before that, the rise of the university artists have to cari di ruang that hati,
Yeah,
bukan
true,
tengok duit dulu, tengok.
kan.
So ada kekurangannya lah.
Yalah,
yeah,
betul.
yeah, yeah.
Saya,
But
if I
return,
kejap,
return, before
Professor.
getting into that, hold on, Prof. So I just want to point out what I'm showing here, right? Like really, now I'm returning back to the practice, right? Like really looking at your video work. These are now a significant works that should be in collection, really, if you ask my personal opinion, right? Really marking a moment and pointing out a particular sort of critique and also concepts and ideas, right? So yeah, I won't stop you, Prof. You can go ahead, but I just want to point out like the work itself becomes so significant. It becomes a body of
Okay.
materials for other people to research.
Okay.
These are significant kind of material now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Prof.
Satu dia panggil KPI, satu dia panggil impact ya. Jadi impact, macam mana nak measure impact of sesebuah karya itu, kan? Kalau kita kata KPI in terms of writing, menulis di dalam jurnal berindeks, ini satu makhluk yang baru yang tidak ada, tidak wujud sewaktu saya dengan Niranjan mula bertapak, dan kami tidak melihat diri kami sebagai ahli akademik. Rasa segan pun waktu tu nak sebut kita ni academician, kan. Not even a word researcher. Kita tidak.
Yes.
Kita mungkin lebih kepada explorer, seorang yang meneroka dan membuat apa yang patut kami buat ketika itu yang diperlukan untuk kami buat. Saya perlu nyatakan di sini konteks yang melingkari praktis. Saya balik, when I came back, of course, I felt a bit lost, but I think that was a very interesting period. other than we were then under this extension of Mahathir agenda of ICT, the art scene was then for me very interesting. The art scene, the Malaysian art scene in early 90s, throughout the 1990s. If you ask me, for me, and even until now, I feel that it is a very interesting period. And I have to acknowledge some of the key players during that period. People like, I don't know, Hoi Cheong, Ray Langerbeck, and then when I came, adalah beberapa orang yang kemudiannya uh, people like Mata Hati punya gang, Hasnul Ramli, even Paiman saya waktu saya student di ITM 94 saya balik. Paiman yang layan saya. Dia kat sini. Kita buat bernapas dalam lumpur. Saya masa tu umur pun tak jauh beza kan. Saya baru balik. So I felt like these are not my students. Yes, these are more like my brothers kan. My friends, my sisters kan. So of course saya bully mereka lah kan. Sebab saya ada power sebagai pensyarah. Tapi waktu itu sudah ada bibit-bibit apa saya panggil analog to digital to electronic. Saya panggil preludes lah, preludes kan. Deconstruction, menyoal balik modernisme, menyoal balik sistem galeri. Bukan kita yang bawa, saya berada di dalam habitat itu, di dalam praktis. Jadi perlu ada theorization untuk praktis itu. Untuk orang-orang macam Paiman, untuk orang-orang lain seterusnya yang buat video ya, macam tu ada Syed Alwi, Hasnul Ramli, kemudian Fuad pun buat video, kemudian lah Hayati Mokhtar, Mu'id Latif ya, kena ingat. Ini semua orang-orang yang awal-awal dulu yang kita sekarang ni mungkin sudah lupakan. Nadia Bamardash after that, after we have created a path, pun buat video sampailah kepada Nur Hanimnya, Hayati Mokhtar, Sushi. So throughout the 1990s for me, very exciting period. So who's going to theorize about it? Because they were deconstructing. I call it under deconstruction. If you read my paper, my article in Timeline, I call it under deconstruction. And then there's another PhD by Michelle. I think you know her, Michelle Antoinette from Australia. She did a PhD on Malaysian art after 1990, extensively interviewing many people. I remember reading her PhD in different versions lah. Ada satu dalam version yang narrative of Malaysian art, dia sudah updated everything. So maybe yang itu saja waktu itu. Michelle punya paper, punya buku ataupun paper saja yang explain conceptually, theoretically what's going on in the 1990s. Other than my writings with Niranjan lah, scattered all over before that, but ours are more focused on electronic art. So back to your question. Kita practice kerana kita nak menguji sesuatu. Kemudian kita tulis kerana kita perlu bagi tahu orang. Bukan kerana kita nak KPI, nak naik pangkat, nak jadi profesor madya. Benda semua ni kan. Jadi saya lagi 4 tahun 5 tahun kan pencen, saya tak main game ni. Game mengejar nombor. Manusia ini mindanya adalah taman yang perlu ditanam, disuburkan. Bukannya track perlombaan. Kenapa kita tukar manusia ni menjadi hamba abdi untuk sistem predatorial capitalism?
Betul.
Sibukkan dia sampai dia tak ada masa untuk menjadi manusia. Ini satu perbuatan yang jahat. Sampai kita kehilangan nilai-nilai kemanusiaan. Kalau tak boleh disukat, tak bermakna hidup ini. Adakah kita mahu bertanya dengan anak kita, hari ini anakku sayang, daripada 1 sampai 10, berapakah kasih sayangmu kepadaku? Hanya apabila diberikan nombor, maka kita katakan sesuatu itu bernilai. Aduh, ya Allah kan. Setelah kena pandai dia bagi aku habis dulu. Bagi aku habis dulu.
I have to interfere, Prof. I agree. I totally agree.
Bagi aku habis dulu. Aku tanya.
Okay.
But please lah kan. Please kan.
Okay.
Please. This is not the moment for you to interrupt, kan? I'm expressing myself, so allow me to express myself. We are human being, okay? Allow me to share this because this is very important. This is a very important point. Don't interrupt me, please, kan? Very important. It's not really about discourse ke apa ke. It's about the value of being a human being, kan? Janganlah kita hancurkan nilai itu kerana kita membuat kerja-kerja yang boleh disukat atas dasar kita nak kejar sesuatu yang superficial dalam hidup kita. So sebab tu saya dengan Niranjan dulu kita tidak ada agenda itu. Itu yang saya nak ingatkan. Kita tidak
Tapi
ada.
bukan saja kita tidak ada, memang betul benar setakat sejauh mana yang saya sedar lah tidak ada agenda tu. Tapi yang penting peluang untuk bekerja tanpa sekatan tu. Itu satu peluang yang aneh, yang luar biasa yang kita dapat, kan? Bukan semua orang dapat. Dalam zaman itu pun universiti lain berbeza. Universiti Unimas pun di fakulti lain berbeza. Ini satu opportunity yang kita dapat lah because of the penerokaan that we were offering, kan? So we were doing something that people lepas tangan, okay, ini kita jangan kacau, something like that for 4, 5, 6 years. But since then, I'm not in a place that I can have that attitude, kan? If to the extent that I have that attitude, masih I have that attitude, I suffer because I'm not getting evaluation yang that I need to move on. So in a way, the fact that we were able to do it is also a credit to that institution, back to the institution point, you know. And what I want to add one thing, because I was as the Timbalandakan research for Unimas for a short while, I was involved in producing the criteria for evaluating art as research. Right? We produced a document that I think was a really good document, you know, and even compared to what we have to do in my present university and so on, I think ours was pretty interesting and pretty forward looking. And one of this is a really, you know, Hasnul's point again. So to come back and, you know, to kind of counter argue against Hasnul a little bit, because this was what was given to me by the vice chancellor in the committee. I mean, Hasnul, you know the story lah. He asked, so your boss Fauzan was the dekan, kan? What's the difference between him and street on the roadside painter or central market painter? What's the difference? You answer that question first before you tell me that we can't measure art in the same way. How do you say that you deserve the status of a professor? So we went back and did some work, and the answer that I came up, which was accepted, was that you should not require my boss to be different in his work from the guy in Central Market, but you are entitled to require that he's able to document and supplement his creative output with theoretical, with notes, with other things. Ancillary documentation. Don't disturb the heart of art making with asking the art to be research. The art is art. The research can be ancillary, complementary to the art. So this was how we laid it. I don't know what happened, whether they still followed or what, but at that moment, that document was accepted, and we went forward. We went forward. You know?
The art itself, the practice itself, can be a part of methods of inquiry. So even, you know, for example, if you are doing some kind of a painting approach, the act of painting itself can be a method, a research method, if you want to. I mean, we can go on in regards to this lah, kan? So my point is that we shouldn't reduce people into a machine. Itu je. Tapi bukanlah maknanya saya menolak. I'm not totally against measuring. quantitative measuring. I'm not against that. We need to have a certain ways of measuring or approximating, but when the whole system creates stress, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia, cannot sleep. So you achieve all the numbers that you want, but down deep psychologically, you create, people with some mental disorders. So
I think the measure shouldn't become the goal, then.
Yeah,
the measure,
that's it.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
When the measure is so powerful that it's all determining, then other things shrink. The quality of life shrinks.
Okay. Now, sorry, I really didn't want to interfere, Prof. Actually, what I wanted to say was, I mean, you and one of the important things I felt why we have such significant work to look back now is purely of this sort of I don't want to say freedom, this sort of operational modus operandi, that this kind of tanah subo, I can say it, that was able to actually allow this sort of different practices, ideas, experiments to come forth. And this is what I was trying to say, Prof, really in supporting and really now looking back, like all these materials that we have today, and we struggle to recreate this now to some extent, or maybe to even identify and to have some kind of a continuity to some extent, like thinking about legacy, thinking about traces, right? What kind of traces that we have now? And there is this missing to some extent, we have to argue because of the context, and that's what I was trying to say, like to bring it back to the practice of electronic art, looking at electronic art and its direction. So it actually needs that Tana Subu for the electronic art to grow and to people to come in, to embrace, to experiment, to propose new ideas, new approaches in thinking about this.
And Rupesh, just to add, I mean, on the other side, the pressure from the academic measurements is one, but of course, all along there's the pressure from the market and the industry, right? Those are equally similar kind of detrimental pressures, but they're all part of life, right? And how we negotiate through it. But it seems it's getting harder and harder. Like in our time, we're old now, right? In our time, this pressure was not so heavy all around. There was a little bit more space. Now the market is so strong. The university measure is so determining. So that, I think for other disciplines also it's a problem, but for art it's a real problem, I think.
Okay, now let me shift a bit. Like now we are looking at Prof. Hasnul's solo show, right? This is a significant exhibition as well. I think this is a moment. I think to some extent, when I look through this, the catalog, you make a quick, important reference, right? So to some extent, that's also another thing that I wanted to ask. How important is it? Was there a precedent to the sort of things that you were doing? I know you were given this blank canvas. Like, how did you go about in building some kind of a narrative or proving like the existence and connecting it with the local cultures, local practices, and things like that? What was your strategy then?
Well, there was a precedent, Ismail Zain,
Mm, mm,
digital collage. So Hyperview is my response to digital collage. Digital collage was in 1988. Hyperview about 10 years later, 1997. So 10 years after digital collage. And these two adik gurus are very important until now lah kan. I even have Ismail Zain's computer here with me dekat sini. The one that he used to create that artworks. So presiden ada, plus few theories and also my my experience sewaktu saya di US, especially di RPI. So I was already introduced to a few theories, even though saya bukanlah pakar teori, tetapi saya sudah ada theoretical context yang membantu saya untuk faham what's going on ketika itu kan. Mungkin ketika itu saya tidak begitu kenal sangat dengan apa yang dikatakan sebagai critical theory, cultural theories, tapi saya tahulah Baudrillard dan sebagainya kan. Dan saya gunakan itu sebagai asas dalam saya punya praktis. So hyperview was my way of documenting my exploration. I came back in 1994 and I felt, I don't know how much I spent, I know government of Malaysia or spend the money to send me to Rensselaer. Tapi itu duit rakyat kan? Duit rakyat yang saya pergi buat masters Rensselaer itu. Ini ayahanda saya selalu ingatkan saya. Supaya saya bayar balik. So 94 saya pulang. 97 saya kena bayar balik. Saya kena present apa yang saya belajar. Itu amanah, satu amanah daripada rakyat Malaysia kepada saya kan. Ayahanda saya selalu ingatkan. So that was a way of me sharing with people what I've learned. It may not be something that that people are familiar with, but it was a responsibility for me to present it to the public. So I had to do it both in practice and in theory. Actually, the catalog was not really theoretical. The catalog was also a part of my proposition of living in a hyper kind of viewing culture. So we are becoming hyper in terms of our viewing, and this was like in 1997 ago. Now living hyper view is like our daily life. We are always engaged. We are living hyper view. It's not anymore kalau ikut istilah as in counter culture. It is already a part of the mainstream culture. So I was sort of menjangkakan apa yang sedang berlaku dan akan berlaku. Yang sedang sekarang ni berlaku ya, 97 dulu. So I came up with a paper actually and presented it in Singapore. I forgot where I put the paper. Maybe I have to come up with a new book lah, edisi baru, where I explain and conceptualize everything, theorize about hyperview, where it came from. So there is a precedent. Dan saya rasa penting kalau kita membuat sesuatu yang baru untuk kita mempunyai kemampuan membingkaikan apa yang kita buat tu dalam satu kerangka teori yang tertentu. Itu karya perlu boleh dibuat lah. Jadi tapi tidaklah itu jadi sesuatu yang saya anggap apa orang kata mechanical sangat. Tapi macam saya tu saya buat tu kerana dia sangat organik kan. Kedua-duanya memerlukan satu sama lain. That is hyperview lah. But you have to thank these two. Ini dua orang manusia yang menjadi common denominator, rujukan antara saya dengan Niranjan. Itu pun penting. Saya rasa satu point yang kita harus gunakan untuk hari ni, malam ni adalah berguru.
Yes.
Jadi mungkin Niranjan tidak dapat berkesempatan berguru dengan Ismail Zain. Tetapi, iyalah dia duduk sebelah saya, bilik dia kan. Saya akan bersembang apa yang saya belajar daripada Ismail Zain. Saya belajar daripada Ismail Zain dengan kawan-kawan saya. 2 semester. Bukan belajar baca-baca buku ataupun skodeng dalam sosial media. Tegur-tegur, tegur-tegur begitu. Itu bukan berguru namanya. Lepas tu kata, saya belajar dengan Cik Hasnul. Itu semua bida'ah saja. Itu saya panggil metodologi skodeng. Ramai yang macam tu kan. Metodologi skodeng. You voyeurism kan. You skodeng. You voyeuris lah. Okay. Hasnul cakap macam ni. Dia quote. Benda macam tu. Itu berguru ke? So saya berguru. Ada 2 kelas drawing. Bukan saya aja, ramai kawan-kawan lain boleh jadi bukti kan cerita kan. Kemudian PR, saya tak berguru tapi saya pergi rumah dia. Saya kena tampar bang, kat sini dia tampar. Hey, wake up lah. Hey, what the heck? Well, you Malay ah. Kan, panas je telinga. Tak tahu kenapa dia sayang sangat dengan bangsa Melayu. Kan, dan PR ni kan. Jadi kita belajar dan berguru dan pergi menghadap dan kena dengan mereka ni. Ismail Zain tu lepas saya belajar, saya Taufik, Fauziah, 3 orang ni pergi ke rumah dia. Tumpang Puan Wairah. Pergi tengok dia punya studio. Dia tunjuk dia punya komputer dia kan. Dia belagak lah waktu tu dia kan. Dia cakap lah. Kamu semua tahu berapa harga komputer ni? Kan? Dia tak tahulah, kita bodoh, kita budak kan. Baru tahun 4 gitu kan. Tak tahu berapa harga dia. Sebuah Proton Saga. Dia jawab macam tu. Dia jawab pun metafora, semiotik juga kan. Jadi
Hmm.
kita tahulah berapa harga proton saga, baru kita tahu harga komputer tu 35,000.
Hmm.
Kemudian dia tunjuklah dia punya, yang ini ada banyak window, tingkap. Kita buka satu tingkap, kita tutup tingkap yang lain. Dia tengah bagi tahu tentang konsep window secara selamba kan. Kalau isteri saya tengok saya sedang mengintai gambar-gambar bogel di tingkap ini, saya akan buka tingkap main chess. Dan dia akan tengok, suami sedang bermain chess. Sebenarnya di belakang chess itu ada tingkap lain, iaitu tingkap perempuan bogel. Contohlah ini saya bagi tahu, saya pergi ke rumah mereka ni kan. Jadi berguru ini penting pada saya lah. Mana perginya berguru kalau baca sekunder data je. Goreng sekunder data kan. So saya bacalah juga kata Pia ni kan. Pia ni depan Niranjan dia gaduh. Tak tahulah Niranjan kena cerita lah kan. Tapi belakang Niranjan, depan aku, dia puji Niranjan macam anak dia. Pahal kan. Apa hal? Pakcik ni sampai mata pun berair-berair memuji Niranjan. Macam Niranjan ni lah anak lelaki dia yang tak ada dulu, dia tak dapat harga. Aku tak tahulah kan. Tapi aku dengar Niranjan pula cerita. Niranjan kata, dia gaduh dengan Pia. Pia datang rumah dia pergi kutuk. Apa benda lah dia kutuk. Kan, mulut Pia tak boleh jaga kan. Tapi menarik sebab guru ni manusia kan. Dia bukanlah seorang yang maksum, tak ada dosa. Kan, tapi itu yang dia punya vulnerability tu yang
Yes.
yang kita belajarlah daripada kelemahan dia, vulnerability dia dalam keadaan dia diuji kan. Macam mana dia bertindak bila dia diuji kan. Itu yang menarik tu berguru. Sekarang ni tahulah. So saya rasa penting kita kena make a statement about berguru also, brother kan. So macam tadi lah kau tengah nak menyampuk aku bagi kau sebiji kan. Walaupun kau dah jadi timbalan dekan.
It's okay.
Tapi kita tahu kita cakap tu atas dasar kasih sayang. Bukan
Betul.
pasal aku benci dengan kau kan. So itu yang penting for me. Even with Niranjan, I don't know. You have to ask Niranjan lah when it comes to PR.
Yeah, no, definitely the personal connection, and my connection with Pia is through his guru. So the guru line is a long line. So my uncle Dure Raja Singham was his school teacher, and Dure Raja Singham is very important figure in kind of Malaysian literary scene in terms of being a kind of mediator for Ananda Kumarasamy, biographer of Ananda Kumarasamy, international figure really, although very modest and not well known, but highly important person. And he was a school teacher in Kuantan, I think. I forget where it's Kuantan.
Yeah.
And Pia is from there, his student. So when my uncle knew that I was going to, do art and not law, then he says, well, you better go and see this fellow. So when I went to see Pia, he received me as somebody coming from his guru, so he took me straight in. And yeah, I would say that I learned a lot from him. I fought with him, but that idea. So the other side of this is the lesson that in a way, neither, I don't know about you, Hasnul, maybe you did it, but I didn't do this seeking for guru in the way that I would like to point out what Rupesh did. So Rupesh didn't have the opportunity to study with us directly, but he came after us, one after the other, right? Got to know us. In your case, I think he found you first, and did his apa ni?
Research.
No, bukan saja research line, sort of his
apprentice.
Sebelum tu, I don't know how you put English pun, I don't know the word for it, but it's like persembah pada guru. Dia cari guru dengan mengadap. Itu dia. Mengadap. So he came to Canada when I was away and studied with me. And so I just feel that this is rewarding, not just for the student, but for the old guru also, to feel that something concrete is being passed down, right? Somebody is taking on those ideas and those responsibilities of those ideas. So it's really about the ideas passing, right? So we got ideas from them, and we're trying to find ways to keep those ideas going. We need people to come after us, right? So in a way, I the timeline that Rupesh you have created for this discussion, looking to the future, we are actually probably going to ask this question about how do we continue, this movement, not
That's right.
just as a history, but as a connection of people, generations of people.
Yeah.
If Rupesh, do you have any other questions? Because I want to respond to Ranjan.
Can. Go ahead. Go ahead.
When because I like the word traces.
Hmm.
Dalam konteks pendidikan, from educational context, in regards to our tradition or Southeast Asia tradition, traces is what we call sanad, line of learning from one guru to another master. So dia punya line ni master yang mana? Itu traces juga. Itu boleh dianggap sebagai traces. Jadi mungkin asalnya gurunya gini. Lepas tu sampai ke sini dia berpecah. Jadi 4. Daripada 4 dia pecah jadi lagi 10. Kemudian pecah lagi. So traces cannot be seen in a linear sense. Traces, if you start to look at traces in a linear sense, then you become, very kind of mechanical, like what we are living now lah kan. Very mechanical way of looking at things. You have to look at traces in a very, bifurcation, fractal kind of a structure. In the same way that you approach history. I presented in the recently dalam conference saya bercakap. The history in Malay, it's called sejarah. Sejarah is from the word sajaratun in Arabic. Sajaratun means pokok. Pokok punya structure bukan satu batang saja. Dia bifurcation, fractal. Dan fractal ni ada daripada microscopic to macroscopic to the cosmic level. So this is the one that I call selafas nadi, the binding force of everything. So we are apart when we look at traces in this way, then we know that dia punya result dia bukan sombong, bukan panas, bukan menunjuk-nunjuk. Dia punya result dia is humility. Itu yang tak ada sekarang ni, aku tak jumpa. Bila kita tahu trace kita ni sebahagian kecil daripada satu konstelasi ilmu yang tidak terbatas. Dia menghasilkan humility. Itu yang diajar di dalam mana-mana tradisi yang datang daripada kosmologi yang sustainable, yang ada merentas dunia. Kan, daripada mana-mana area di dalam dunia ni, termasuklah di daerah Nusantara yang sebenarnya merupakan amalgamation daripada banyak pengaruh, contohnya daripada Hindu, daripada Buddha, daripada China, Taoism sebagainya. Kemudian baru datang Islamnya. Jadi kosmologi ini yang kita lupakan dalam tradisi belajar. Jadi dia punya apex of learning is humility, bro. But now we don't have that. Because the central in learning is about bragging lah, ego, clashing lah, bla bla bla. No. So kita punya gear tu sudah lari. Macam kalau saya macam sorry Rupesh, I use you as an example. Okay, kau pening-pening, kau panas-panas je kan, kepala kau dah berasap je jadi timbalan dekan kat MMU tu, kau lari pergi sedim dululah sebelum MCO lah kan. Kau lari pergi sedim kita. Prof, saya pening lah prof, boleh saya relax kejap? Okay, mari datang. Okay, you datang. Okay. Rupesh, you shut the fuck up. Go into the river. Terjun masuk dalam sungai itu. Kan? Kau terjun situ kan. Habis semua kau punya toxic energy kau, tak apa benda kau kutip dalam hidup kau boleh mengalirkan dia. Okay. And then you came back and we talk, But the experience of going into the river, you shut up lah. You don't have to explain to me. Dia sebab apa? Sebab dia bagi you humility. Then I bawa you pergi dekat itu, mana tu?
Pokok jambatan tu.
pokok tu, apa dia panggil, treetop.
Treetop, ya.
Next morning, early in the morning, okay, bro, we go to the treetop. Okay, I want you to see this and I want you to experience this. Again, you were like, oh my God,
Betul.
God. Boss, this one is beyond everything. So that is the apex of learning, bro. Humility. Humility in the face of this vastness of knowledge, of beauty, of love, of compassion that is beyond us, and we are in the middle of it. That's why tadi guna perkataan madya. Madhya is higher consciousness. Madhya is from Sanskrit. Of course lepas tu medios dan sebagainya dalam bahasa Latin, tapi asalnya dalam Bhagavad Gita, Madhya, high form of consciousness. Kemudian satu lagi dikaitkan dengan Madhya, nadi. Nadi related to Madhya. Nadi is our now in computer science it's called internet. But if you ask me, when I teach my students, I teach them internet first. Our blood system and our nerve system. It's about the learner knowing, learning about himself or herself. So nadi kita ni, internet kita ni belajar tu dulu. Baru kita belajar internet, which is an external manifestation of our nerve system and our blood system. And then on Earth itself, so many nadis. The hydrologic system is all about nadis, the river system. Itu adalah nadi. Sebab tu saya guna istilah senafas, senadi. You know, you share the same breath and the same pulses with among us and with nature and with the whole universe, with God. So that is the ultimate and apex of learning, humility. So sorry lah saya mengalut sikit. Tapi saya rasa itu penting. Dan ini hanya boleh diperolehi bukan dari baca buku macam kat belakang saya ni penuh kan. Kau baca seluruh buku ni kan. Aku bawa pergi sungai, aku campak kau kat sungai. Lain. So pengalaman yang kau lalu, go back to your question before. You have a theory, you don't test the theory. You belagak lah.
True.
Orang panggil ilmu panas. Banyak orang boleh baca, semua orang sekarang boleh baca. In terms of knowing, so many people can say, I know this, oh I know that, oh siapa, oh I know him. Macam pernah jumpa kan, oh siapa nama dia, oh I know that guy. Padahal dia sekodeng aja. Oh just know, I know just know, tak pernah tegur pun. Dalam lift kalau jumpa pun, tak tahu je. Kan? So, ilmu ni, kita ada teori, kita kena uji. Bila kita uji, kita akan dapat humility. Humility ni, wah, you know, awesomeness, sense of awe of what we discover. Itulah researcher. Researcher hasil jadi sombong. Buat apa tu kan researcher hasil dia jadi sombong. Researcher ni dia, wow. Macam saya ada seorang guru fizik, Dr. Chong. Wow. Dia kata ada, wow. Itu maknanya something that is bigger than me. So, I want to remind everybody lah, kita tak ramai pun, tak apalah kan. Yang tak ramai ni fikirkan kualiti. Kita mahu ilmu ini membawa kepada humility. Kekaguman kepada sesuatu yang lebih besar daripada kita. Kita kena kembali kepada asas ilmu yang begitu yang ada dalam semua tradisi. Banyak tradisi, bukan hanya tradisi Melayu Nusantara saja, malah tradisi Melayu Nusantara itu sendiri tidak bersifat eksklusif. Dia amalgamation kan, dia sangat inklusif, dia acculturation, dia combine, dia fusion dah. Cantik dah tu kan. Sorry lah, sebelum saya melalut, saya berhenti lah lepas je.
I think I just do, for the sake of time, let me go certain things quickly. In a sense, like one of the reasons, sebab mengapa I put some of these slides here is to actually to pin it down into concrete example, macam Prof cakap lah. Theorizing is one aspect, and that's the first aspect we're talking about, this idea of theory, practice, how do we articulate this, how do we frame this, how do we have discourse about this. But the next slide, see a few slides, and I will quickly go through this for the sake of time. It's like really, how did you translate those sort of ideas and experiments and concepts into concrete examples that we have today, right? So one of it, the very prominent one, is the first electronic art show. And this is really, in a way, it is built from the sort of ideas that came before. If you read it, you can see the reference towards Ismail Zain and the other practices, and also bringing forth the sort of arguments that you just presented, Prof, like in terms of the sort of how it relates to the tradition and all that. But I'm not going to explain so much about electronic art. But importantly, I just want to point out that these are some of the examples of which that we have now as a point of reference. And yang itu pun penting juga, I rasa, Prof, to really acknowledge the existence of this evidence, because these are actually manifestation of practices, of real tangible evidence that actually proves that these things has been taught before, that allows us bingkai lah, dah ada bingkai yang kita dah boleh pakai. And this is also another problem when people actually don't look at the evidence. I don't know why is it ignored or overlooked and all that. But to some extent, we could even argue this was one of the first online presentation of an exhibition, like really formal presentation in a gallery of an institution at Balai, a real exhibition that has an online version, not an online exhibition, but an online version, an adaptation of that, an extension into the online platform. Maybe I want to ask a bit, because I know Prof. Niranjan was heavily involved in the process of articulating this and framing this, right? You can talk through us a bit about this first electronic art show and what was the thought process behind, especially in the context of presentation, right?
Well, just a little bit of background first, also quickly.
Mm.
I mean, the way we did this is like the way we were talking about our relationship. So, you know, I'm less involved with the Malaysian scene. I'm coming, you know, with a lot of theoretical ideas. Hasnul had all the data basically about, you know, who's around and who's important and who's done what. And we brought these two things together, the kind of theoretical framing and the substantive, you know, knowledge about the artists and the scene. And then we worked it together quite quickly and effortlessly into this project. And, you know, going back to the guru idea, you know, even in Sanskrit or in the Tamil culture, we call it parampara. Parampara is the lineage, right? So in this exhibition, before we went ahead to do our stuff, we made a big effort to lay down every person that we could. I mean, it wasn't an exhaustive research, but I think we got most people. I don't know if we missed anybody at all, right? That was important, that had done something. And on
Before
top
us.
of it,
Before us.
before us, we remembered and put them down, like you said, as a structure, as a platform for us to acknowledge them, but also to enable us to go forward another level, not to go to the side and ignore the previous work. So we did that. This, I think, first electronic art for me, I think, and for Hasnul, was both dual, right? To acknowledge and to create a platform to go forward. Right? So that is one thing. And yes, the other thing is part of the integration of the idea of hypertext, the idea of the emerging, you know, the internet as a medium, not just for information, but a live medium in which things are happening. You know, this is all emerging. It's being theorized in these little short essays, some by Hasnul, some by me, and some we wrote together. And we covered most of the issues that, you know, that would be the basis for thinking about what to do in new media. Even today, I think, still relevant. Of course, things have moved a lot. 97.
97.
Even kita ada Encik Bahar kat sini. Dr. Bahar. Dr. Bahar was one of the persons that we look back
Yes.
as among the pioneers. He did his robotic art under like a bag kan. So we didn't just say that, oh, kita buat satu yang baru. Kita always, you know, tengok dia punya konteks kan, historical context, precedents kan. Kita go back to Lee Kuan Yew, kita even go back to punya language lesson. Kemudian dia punya work dengan another guy framing the war. So we went to see Ray and interviewed him. So kita tak buat sesuatu out of nowhere. But back to your question about siapa buat dulu, siapa buat kemudian, we were not interested in that. So we were not interested in it. It's not about racing.
Right.
I think the point is, kalau kita buat sesuatu yang orang lain dah buat 25 tahun dulu, kita bukan invention. Itu je. Maknanya kita repeat problem statement yang sama. Jadi itu lawak lah kalau buat research, mesti ada literature review kan. Saya tak tahulah sekarang zaman-zaman sekarang ni zaman-zaman buat paper kan. Artis semua depan dia dah ada DR semua. Hebat. Jadi kalau buat tentang katalah yang berkaitan dengan elektronik art ke apa ke, dah tentulah mesti ada literature. Kalau tak ada literature, maknanya problem statement kita, problem statement yang sudah dijawab 20 tahun, 25 tahun dulu. Lawak lah. Jadi apa yang originalnya sampai boleh dapat DR, PhD? Kan? Oh, ini berkenaan dengan apa? Telepresence, disembodiment, dematerialization. Dah cakap dah. Siapa cakap? Leman Esa dah cakap. Berapa tahun dulu? Tak tahu dah. 80 berapa tahun, tahun 80-an dulu. So this is what I meant. It's not about siapa dulu. It is about having a context. So kalau tidak kita repeat the same problem. So I don't want you to repeat the same problem that I went through with Niranjan. Kita dah approach that. Kan? Jadi sebab tu nanti dah berapa tahun merdeka 60 tahun, balik-balik persoalan identiti. Itu yang tak larat tu kan. Macam problem statement yang diulang. Tak settle ke problem statement? Problem statement 60 tahun problem statement tu. Sampai berapa orang dah dapat PhD kot atau master kot kan. Lawak lah. Ni orang pun tertawa dengan ini ke tradisi keilmuan di kalangan akademik. Dia bercakap je tapi solution tak ada pun. Nanti kita dituduh begitu kan. Pada saya tak menarik lah kan. Jadi siapalah nak buat, katalah nak online ke apa ke, baguslah. Kita mahu sekarang ni Malaysia dipacu oleh orang macam kau. Apa ni, Rupesh, Dr. Jamil, Dr. Najib. You are at that age when I was at that age before dengan Ranjan. You have to remember ya, saya tengok you all ni macam saya tengok saya muda dulu. Saya boleh bayangkan saya punyalah agresif kan, kepala angin, nak tu nak ini nak buat. Jadi saya kena jadi manusia yang macam Zawawi Ismail atau Wan Zawawi yang jadi bos saya dulu, atau Fauzan Omar kan, bagi mereka generasi ini untuk bergerak. Tapi ada reference lah, ada konteks, ada dia punya framework yang bagus kan. Maknanya dia membawa sesuatu problem statement yang baru, bukan mengulang yang dulu punya kan. So we want that to happen. That is what legacy is all about. It's not only one place, it can be many places. Even my students are many places, not only you. Aloy dekat Utah. So many rata-rata yang dekat Paiman dekat Seri Iskandar. Masing-masing akan mencambahkan, orang kata pokok je kan. So mungkin Rupesh cambah cara kamu kan. Kemudian orang lain akan cambah. But I really believe in now Malaysia should be propelled by young people like you to come up with new problem statement bro, not 60 years ago. Problem statement yang dah ditulis oleh saya atau Ranjan atau Leman Esa atau Piadasa. Kan, tak kisahlah apa dia. Kan. Jadi itulah saya punya saya nak remind lah, sebab kita ada banyak perkara yang kita kena tengok sekarang ya. Macam Rupesh cakap sendiri, macam-macam perkara berlaku. Satu daripadanya disebabkan oleh kerana kita ditampar oleh pandemik. We are in this together. So thinking in a very demarcated ways in regards to education, in regards to social system, in regards to making art doesn't work anymore.
Yes.
Thinking in a very exclusive way, that kind of thinking paradigm doesn't work anymore. So we need to shift the paradigm. And I found that, interestingly enough, you also know probably because saya selalu bincang dengan you, or maybe Niranjan also. If we skip that modernist punya framework, or whatever you call it, classical system, or mechanical kind of paradigm, you go to, I will use the word quantum paradigm. You are not you will discover that quantum paradigm is compatible with our traditional cosmology, the cosmology of sustainability. So the answers for many problems now, global warming, environmental degradation, blah blah blah, can be found in our traditional cosmologies across many different traditions. So my point is, because of the pandemic, it shows that everybody is connected, is interconnected. That one we have been, you don't have to go and study about quantum interconnectedness or entanglement. It is right there now. We know that you can get COVID from anybody. You letak kat dari you kan, topi cowboy besar mana pun, kalau COVID nak attack juga. So the thinking paradigm yang kita pakai ni berguna atau tidak? Saya tanyalah. So exclusivity ni berguna ke tidak? Kan? So all this have already been asked daripada dulu. Ni Ranjan punya hal lah ni. Ini Victor Meyer, buku Victor Meyer. Ini saya akan gunakan every time saya buat kelas saya. Ini PowerPoint dia. Of course Niranjan yang introduce saya buku ni, Victor Meyer ni kan. Tapi ini pictorial recitation. Ranjan, betul
The book is called Painting and Performance by Victor Meyer.
Victor Meyer.
He traces the movement of a certain art form, multimedia art form.
From that was our claim.
History till early history. He traces it beginning in India, moving through Asia, China, Iran, and into Europe. Mystery plays and various different forms. So this is Wayang Berber from Indonesia, but there's Parda from Iran.
Next one. Ada lagi tak slide?
Ada. Oh no, only this one. Right?
Only that one.
Itu saja. But it's an example. So what we did with can you go back? What we did with this is to try to ground the idea that everybody's talking about multimedia as if something coming from Barat, something baru that time. What is nothing new. Multimedia tu memang sudah ada, sedia ada. Ini just satu sort of kaedah yang baru. That's all. Right?
Even the word Maya kan, virtual Maya.
Yes.
It came from our source, from our from this side, from cosmology. Okay, so
sebenarnya the integration of media is the pre-existing condition. Modernism separates the medium. Painting become paintings, and then now postmodern and media technology is bringing it back. So our argument was bringing it back to what? Bringing it back to us, to our tradition. Kan? So we just have to reclaim that understanding, and then the new media is our language already.
It is inherent.
Inherent.
It is inherent. It is fitrah in Malay word. It is inherent, meaning it is a part of our natural quality. Interconnectivity. Ini disebut ukhuwah, pertalian saudara, kan? It's inherent in our system of thought. Somehow we got screwed because because of the modernization projects, things like that. Of course, now with this, I don't know, predatorial kind of a greedy capitalism that is controlling our life and turning us into tikus-tikus yang sibuk. Kan? Jadi, for me, fundamentally, we have to understand the paradigms. We need to shift whatever some of the existing paradigms that doesn't work. Existing paradigm yang doesn't work and proven doesn't work. As we have been asking that question many times. Through many different forms. So saya bagi satu contoh lah. Non-linear. You have to adopt this non-linear concept. You cannot look at things as mula-mula A, B, C. It's not necessarily working like that anymore. So that's one thing. And then you have to look at everything as a dynamic integrated system. It's not anymore isolated. So that is very, when I say that, it is very quantum, and at the same time, you can see that in the way our traditional arts, I call it visualization, traditional visualization, be it Islamic source from Islamic tradition or Hindu tradition, already acknowledge that. It is called sacred geometry. Go and Google that lah, kan, banyak buku. And it is a part of what I read one book called The Grammar of Harmony. This grammar of harmony has been used across many different traditions, and we can sort of look back at that, and at the same time, this language is speaking in the quantum language, a language of interconnectivity. So we have to understand that we are at the stage where we have to make critical decision to shift our paradigm. And that is probably the challenge. Yeah. Of course, then kita akan cerita pasal benda lain lah pula kan, politik dan sebagainya.
Actually, at this point, if I may, Rupesh, if we can go back, I'm sorry to slow you down, but go back one slide. And this is a good place to remember Pak Sulaiman as well, Sulaiman Essa, because for me, especially at the time when I was coming back from UK, mystical reality was a key reference, right? So Pia and Sulaiman, going back to Pan-Asian metaphysics to make contemporary modern art or postmodern art, right? And it was, for me, very thrilling. And then with my uncle's connection to Ananda Kumarasamy, I put the two together, and I kind of came with this idea of a post-traditional metaphysics that has to be integrated. And of course, after that movement, Pia continued more towards identity politics with his, his painting series, his Malaysian identity series. But Sulaiman went the other way. He went more with the mystical track, but he went, focused down back into his own tradition, Islam, and theorized and produced a kind of modernist Islamic style, right? Like clearly the most consolidated and theorized in terms of Western theory. Maybe the other artists were doing it in a different way from the Islamic side or whatever. But in terms of this Western discourse, Sulaiman is the one that is able to articulate that with references to Syed Hussein Nas and other scholars from that universal tradition. So one of the things for me, and also to fit with what Hasnul is saying about network, is that, in our traditions, religion is important, and it's a uniter in that we all believe in God, more or less, and it's a divider because we all have a different name, and a different idea. And so this remains a bridge and a barrier in our society, especially in Malaysia, all the time. And there is a way to transcend this without breaking any boundaries. If you look for the metaphysics and the underlying principles of each of these systems, there's so much in common. And as Hasnul has been doing, you can even connect to physics, and quantum physics. So metaphysics and physics connects all people, right? So that's Hasnul's point. I just wanted to reiterate it and remember Sulaiman Essa at this point as well. I think.
Yeah, nadi, the term nadi is also very central, not only within our body, but in regards to our relationship with nature, and how can we destroy when we destroy rivers, like now people can go and picnic and suddenly they have left much more carbon footprint, it's ridiculous, but that's our attitude. So we need to come back to our cosmology of sustainability, like jangan nanti menangis sungai ni. That is a part of, I know it may sound like, oh, ini mambo jumbo, ini kepercayaan karut, but that helps to maintain sustainability because it's already there, embedded in the whole system of thinking. Jangan rosakkan pokok ni, bagi dia dah jadi tua, ada cycle dia baru kita tobang dia. Ini sudah ada dalam tradisi kita, tetapi kita merosakkannya kerana kita terperangkap dalam satu sistem yang berasaskan tamak, haloba, like what orang kata apa ni, tamak ni takkan habis sampai bila-bila lah kan. Okay.
So Again, I have to go quick now because
Yeah.
now we're really running short of time. So again, EART ASEAN is one of the significant, also another milestone that we have to mention at this point, right? And importantly, I also want to say this is parallel with other forms of international sort of approaches to new media that was happening. So you have Rhizome that is also hello, hello,
Ya,
hello.
Rupesh, boleh dah okey ke sekarang?
Dah
Ah,
okay, okay, okay,
okey,
okay,
okey.
okay, okay, okay. Sekejap.
Biasalah kena keluar balik dan masuk balik.
Okay, saya baru masuk, saya dah keluar masuk balik. So,
Tengah sedap, tengah sedap bergaduh kan.
sekejap.
Alah, sekali-sekali sekala bukan senang nak jumpa Niranjan, dia duduk dekat Vancouver kan. Nak dia kena bangun pukul 6 pagi untuk bersembang dengan kita kan. Tapi terasa macam memang kita bercakap berdepan kan. Okeylah kan.
Berdepan sama. Itu
Ah.
kaedah virtual.
Kan.
Okay, hold on. Okay, kejap. Let me try to share again.
Saya kena maklumkan kepada yang lain-lain lah. Kalau saya berjumpa dengan Niranjan sampai pukul 4 pun tak habis. Bahaya kan. Jadi sediakan kopi lah kan. Jadi dan kadang-kala saya apabila ada orang lain lah kan, misal kata pelajar sebagainya, bila saya berbual dengan Niranjan, saya kadang-kadang kasihan juga dengan pelajar. Kadang-kadang mereka pun apa benda lah dua orang tua ni bercakap kan.
Okay, can you all see the slide? Is my slide moving?
Yeah,
Yeah.
your slides are there.
I think you
Okay,
will have to
now I have to go fast. Memang fast.
okay.
There's a lot of things we've been dragging quite some time. Okay, so again, going back to where I left. Okay, yeah, ASEAN
Yes.
and the internet one. This one is very important. I really want to ask Niranjan to talk about this internet because
Yeah.
this is really a very significant artifact as well as significant contribution. Really in thinking about the idea of internet, what it means, and to articulate. So I will straight away pass this to Niranjan to speak about this.
Yeah.
So in 95, when I came back, I didn't even like computers. I didn't even know how to use the computer to do even word processing, right? To do my Goldsmith's dissertation, my wife Jane had to help me type it out. That's how I came. I was a materials-based, photography-based, concept-based practitioner. And I wasn't hired at Unimas because of my new media skills or anything, computer skills. I was hired for, this capacity to contribute to art and arts management. So then through Hasnul and through the agenda of the Vice Chancellor and just the environment, I got aware of the World Wide Web, and I understood immediately that what it was a manifestation of all my dreams of what I was trying to achieve in the installation world, the connectivity, the movement, the dematerialization, the ability to link text and ideas to the artwork, all became like just at my fingertips through the web. So I found a way to move my practice, including elements from previous performative interventions, photographs, integrate them into these internet statements, if you like. And then I started theorizing about what it means for the image, what it means for representation, what it means when representation and communication become one place. This is a new paradigm for art, right? So I started making those interventions, writing and making. So in '96, I made this work, The Failure of Marcel Duchamp, Japanese Fetish Even. And it was premiered presented for the first time in IZEA in Rotterdam in '96.
Yes, 96,
yeah, 96. And, it was a very simple piece, but it articulated the space that was emerging in the internet. What's the space that we share, that we all have access to instantaneously, but we're coming from different locations. So what are the ontological implications, the political implications, the cultural implications? All these things are addressed by this very simple web piece, but quite an articulate sort of expression of all these problems. So yeah, that was
This is
96.
another
And an interesting fact, which I only learned recently because I didn't think about it this way. But in 1996, in January 96, according to the figures that I have, there were only 100,000 websites in the world. And the majority of websites at any time, right, 75% apparently are just domain names that are not active. So 25% of, that's all. This was a really early World Wide Web intervention. Right? And today there's like over 1.8 billion websites, right? Again, of which 75% are just domain names, but still, that's the time that has passed, and that's how early this work was. And the idea of using remote server to put stuff online that you couldn't put locally. In Malaysia, there was a journalist, Sang Kancil was his place. I forgot his name now. Siapa nama dia?
I forgot bro. I remember Sang Kancil only.
Sang Kancil is his. So using a server, a remote server, able to criticize the government. These kinds of ideas that are normal now, were coming new. And I was there the same year as Sang Kancil was I think inaugurated, was The Failure of Marcel Duchamp. And so this is the second piece, which I made, I think, 2 years later, or 1 year later. This is the more involved with expression of in a way what Aloy was talking about, right? Articulating the idea of virtual and real as space. So recreating, not in 3D, but on the screen, this kind of navigational idea, moving through an installation, moving through ideas. What's the difference? Moving from video to text, hyperlinks, animations. And again, all the time making commentary about different aspects of art coming from conceptualism. So this is the second web piece.
98. This is 98.
98, huh? 98,
Yes,
yeah.
98.
Yeah. And you know, the other interesting thing was before we even come to this, is that in 97, INET, you know, the Internet
Yes.
Society, the conference came to Kuala Lumpur, right? And not to boast lah, but actually to proudly say where UNIMAS was, where we were, our project was at the time. So when Malaysia has the internet agenda, right, already stated, the Prime Minister is ahead. The you know, maybe only the Prime Minister, I wouldn't even say the government has the vision, but we had the vision. UNIMAS has the vision, right? I don't know who else in industry had the vision. Few people had the vision. But when INET, the major conference, these are the people who give out IP addresses, you know, they control the whole internet. When their conference came to Kuala Lumpur, I went as an attendee and I presented a paper, Art After the Internet. Yeah. It's a kind of really pioneering paper, if I say so myself. And when I presented that paper, apart from the minister who spoke, it was just me from UNIMAS from Malaysia, right? So that's how connected we were, you know, at this moment. And there are other examples which we will come to, that we were really ahead. You know, even Singapore wasn't there like the way we were in terms of art, right? Singapore was there in other ways, but in terms of bringing art, so art was ahead of all industry and everything in this theoretical realm. And this was a collaboration around the same time with a colleague in India, Raman Srinivasan, who did most of all of the building. I did, again, like the way I work with Hasnul, the theorizing, and we brought the internet aspect of it to Sarawak, because again, Malaysia was ahead of India. Can you imagine at that time, you know, in terms of everything internet? So we did the project, you know, across India and Chennai and Kuching. And then years later, you know, I printed 3D printed the icon, and you know, there's a long story, but again, it was an idea of this sacred. So this wasn't just an architectural model. Yes, it's an architectural model. There's a physical sort of modeling aspect to it. But the idea was, can we theorize and build a functional sacred space for one particular tradition? So we theorized it. We dealt with the problems. Of course, we didn't have the capacity to run it yet because, for instance, internet access was not enough, you know, for people at that time to run heavy programs like this. And there were problems, you know, how do you create a sacred space on the internet? We are not priests, or we are not whatever. But since then, you can see there are a lot of real sacred activities going on. You can do confession online. You can, you know, so a lot of things have actually moved into this realm. Again, like a kind of early intervention into that area. And of course, this is kind of pointing to the future. Nothing to do with the newest of media, but still it's photography. And this is my Telinga Keling, which brings me back to the identity issues. You know, although I believe in transcending them all the time in life, in relationships, but we cannot ignore them, right? So this is life in Malaysia and me in Malaysia, and
this one, I think this is important.
So this is back to that internationalization. So this is Third Text, a major, you know, pioneering post-colonial publication in the UK. And I had a paper in there about my work and the work of all the internet artists that we had developed mainly only at UNIMAS. Right? And so this was published, and the cover of Third Text is Siway's
3D work.
Mondrian in action.
Mondrian in action.
Yeah. So that was a highlight. And then the other piece is all the UNIMAS works, Hasnul, myself, our students that were part of the virtual triennale in APT3, Asia Pacific Triennale 3. And this is Hasnul and me. one of the few actual works that we did together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is nice piece, but it's mainly like a discursive journey through both our works, but we turned that into a kind of work in itself. Yeah, it's very fun.
This is part of APT, right? This is part of APT.
Also part of the virtual triennial APT.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we were not only doing it locally, we were also able to get it out and get recognized and written about and included internationally. Right? Again, between 96 and 2000, most of these things happened.
Yeah.
I think at this point, I want to open up a bit, like, if people have any questions, I think
Yeah,
they
we should go. We should check. We should check. Can you check the chatting? Maybe we should read, or anybody who wants to
say something.
to say something. This is sembang kan.
Yeah.
So bedal aja, jangan risau sambil minum kopi.
Betul.
Ini bukan wacana formal sangat ya.
Yeah.
Anybody lah saya buka. Kita buka lah kan. Siapa nak tanya? Ada student praktikal pun di sini. Mungkin mereka pun tertanya-tanya kan.
Saya ada satu soalan.
Ya.
Tak tahu siapa boleh jawab. Saya suka bila tengok, I think work yang work telinga keling tu saya dah tengok, I think since saya baru grad daripada UiTM rasanya. But my point is, saya selalu tertanya macam mana kalau, as an artist, macam mana artist tu have that guts, untuk menyuarakan perkara-perkara sensitif. I mean, I know there are banyak perkara yang especially dekat Malaysia, bila dia nak express something, kejap lagi kena censor lah, and then artwork kena bring down lah, see. So bila I tengok work yang macam up to telinga keling, I think that is, to me lah, I mean, it conveys two meaning, kuih as a kuih, and then, keling as an Indian, as tu stereotype waktu dekat Malaysia. So, so as an artist, macam mana, or macam mana boleh terfikir untuk being that so sensitive. So tapi dalam masa yang sama kau beranilah pergilah juga, kalau kena ban lah, kalau tak kena ban okey lah kan. Because
so I think I understand the question. I think I like the question because sebenarnya saya tak berani. Saya tak suka dan tak berani dan saya tidak suka percanggahan. Saya tidak suka menimbulkan masalah, because pada saya, when you're sebagai seniman lah, sebagai orang di tepi jalan mungkin saya mau bertengkar, itu cerita lain. Tapi sebagai seniman, saya tidak suka menghasilkan kontroversi mengelilingi karya saya, because saat itu terjadi, dia sudah berubah menjadi satu token dalam bidang politik, bidang lain. So pada saya, cara untuk membawa sesuatu kepada perbincangan, ke dalam memasukkan dia ke dalam perbincangan, kita mesti halus, kita mesti beradab dan membawa kebenaran kepada hati orang, bukan kepada ego. Jangan bercanggah dengan ego orang, ego you dengan orang lain. Tak payah ada bercanggahan. Kita boleh cakap semua tanpa itu. Ini orang Melayu pandai buat. Walaupun nak bunuh seorang dengan yang lain, dia pandai bersembang, kan? Ini kita belajar dari budaya Melayu. Tapi sekarang saya rasa orang Melayu pun sudah lupa lah Melayu zaman sekarang, kan? So to me the answer is, ini budaya Melayu. Saya rasa cara kita membawa sesuatu dalam pantun, dalam peribahasa, semua jelas, tapi bukan terus terang, kena fikir sikit. Ada macam delay lah, ada damper, delay, kan? So kita bagi you fikir sendiri sedikit. So sebenarnya tak berani dalam seni. Saya tak berani. Saya buat mencari kebenaran tu bukan berani, itu senang, kita cari saja. Bila dapat kita luahkan, dan luahkan secara beradab.
Okay. I mean, bila tengok that work, I mean, so masuk actually it reminds me bila saya buat belajar dekat Australia dulu, where you know among us Malaysian, you know, even I mean this among us Malaysian, um, kalau dengan you know those apa Indian friend which is called keling, you know, and then those Indian friend they will call apa tu Melayu kaki tipu, you know, Cina kaki this and that, right? So I thought probably you know that keberanian itu probably because masa kita berada dekat luar Malaysia, you know, so that kita berada lebih lantai because kita berada dalam satu sistem yang lebih terbuka. Tapi bila balik Malaysia macam alamak nanti kena pula.
Yeah, so that is another thing, right? Di antara apa saudara mara kita boleh terbuka dan tak kisah. Tapi di luar dalam masyarakat yang lebih luas, kita kena apa ni mengikut kefahaman sezaman, kan? So perkataan ini dulu perkataan mulia. Siapa? Keling. Bendahara yang keling. Sultan yang keling. Dulu. Melayu dulu keling. Para mesuara tu siapa? Tak segan you panggil dia keling. Kerana memang dia keling. Dia mulia. Sekarang sudah menjadi satu perkataan penghinaan. You panggil orang keling di tepi jalan, dia marah. So ini sejarah istilah perkataan tu. Kan? Dan another aspect mengikut kawasan. So Kelantan lain, orang India Kelantan dia terima. Sebab itu kita boleh bincang lah. Tapi di Kuala Lumpur dia tak terima. Kuih itu nama dia kuih, nama kuih saja, bukan penghinaan orang India. Tapi di Kuala Lumpur, jangan panggil kuih apa ni telinga keling. Kerana orang salah faham. Kan? Orang Kelantan pun dia tak berani cakap tu di KL. So those are the different aspects lah. Orang India dia tidak tahu sebenarnya di Selangor, dia tidak tahu nama kuih itu dia tahu, tapi dia tidak tahu nama kuih itu telinga keling. Melayu semua tahu. Tapi dia tak cakap di depan orang India, so orang India tak tahu. So these kind of semiotic play, kan, the signifier is split for different communities that receive the perlambangan tu. So I was playing with that rather than to make a statement. Tak marah, tak segan. Kita main saja dengan benda tu. The material is symbolic material.
Ya, satu lagi kalau kita baca daripada sejarah Melayu itu sendiri kan, memang ada satu daerah Kalingga dipanggil kan. Dan daerah itu memang dikaitkan dengan kain bisa kata cindai dan kain sutra yang begitu mahal kan. Waktu itu dalam konteks sejarah istilah Kalingga itu tidak mempunyai konotasi yang negatif. Jadi dia idea Niranjan ni is about the slippery nature of our interpretation. Semiotik lah. Jadi tidak ada satu orang kata makna yang tetap. Jadi hubungan etnik kita pun tergantung kepada situasi begitu. Dia slippery kan. Dia boleh jadi sensitif, dia boleh jadi berkawan. Saya beri contoh lah ayahanda saya dengan kawan-kawan dia. Terutama kawan Cina lah. Kalau pergi ke pasar kan. Dia punya greeting memang brutal. Kan? Yang that Chinese tauke will say, "Oi Melayu." Kan? In a very confrontational way. Tapi sebenarnya mereka kawan baik daripada muda kan. Yang bapa saya, "Oi Cina, lu gila." Dia cakap orang tu gila kan. Tapi persahabatan itu berpuluh tahun sehingga bila ayahanda saya meninggal. Saya pergi beli that tauke saya, mana itu orang tua gila. Saya kata sudah meninggal. Dia menangis. Jadi di mulut tu nampak macam ganas. Tak ada isu. Sebenarnya hubungan dia dalam kan. Pertautan tu dalam. Jadi kita ni banyak berlakon saja. cakap ikut politically correct punya istilah, tapi sebenarnya hati tu benci membenci. So for me, I learn from even I don't know about Ranjan. Ranjan ni dia ada satu secret menarik tau. Dia dulu pergi sekolah bersama dengan Syamuddin Hussein. Anyway, itu dia cerita lah kan. Saya masuk sekolah dulu kan, saya masih lagi berada dalam persekitaran sekolah di mana kita bertumbuk gaduh, cakap pasal bangsa lah. Guna istilah-istilah tu lah kan. Bertumbuk sampai bertumbuk berdarah tau. Tapi besok okey je. Orang ni panggil orang ni keling, orang ni panggil Melayu bodoh kampung. Bertumbuk, berdarah. Besok kawan balik, bersiap peluk kan. So I don't know lah, itu saya dilahirkan dalam konteks begitu kan. Tapi bagi saya signifikan karya Niranjan itu banyak, dia ada subteks yang dalam berhubung dengan cara kita mentafsir hubungan sosial kita itu perlu dinilai semula. Itu saya rasa lah tengok. Tapi secara halus lah, cara yang melawak pun ada kan. Dia macam Ranjan cakap lah, tak payah nak kurang ajar sangat ni. Kadang-kala kurang ajar ni boleh jadi satu strategi kan, differentiation, you know. Of course, I don't know, maybe I can't speak on behalf of Ranjan kan. But you know, you can gain certain kind of mileage by hijacking the discourse of marginalization. You can also you can gain a lot of international mileage at some certain points in the contemporary art scene. It seems like if you play around particular kind of discourse and you play around, you know, you hijack and you sort of co-opt that into your own narration or I don't know, placement, like you do a product placement. Oh, I am a victim, I am being marginalized, I am being blah blah blah. Can also be giving a lot of mileage, economic mileage, strategic mileage to be a superstar artist, things like that kan, boleh juga. Kan, jadi macam movement siapa Me Too, Me Too kan. Jadi ada juga yang tak autentik, yang sebenarnya menggunakan movement itu untuk mengenaya orang lelaki. Boleh berlaku begitu juga kan. Jadi kena berhati-hatilah kan. But for me, untuk makluman Najib lah kan, tak apa, karya tu sudah jadi koleksi negara. Jadi negara kita sudah menerimanya. Menarik tu kan. So ada lagi siapa-siapa?
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Hello. Hai.
Dr. Hasnul and Rupesh.
Yes.
Hai.
Can I comment again?
Ya, boleh. Sila.
Okay, Rupesh. Thank you very much, Dr. Hasnul, Rupesh, and also Niranjan. I'm glad to be with you today. Ada satu soalan yang ingin saya tanyakan kepada ketiga-tiga lah. Saya ni bukan panel ya. Ketiga-tiga panel yang ada tu. What do you think, in your opinion? You mean that the electronic art in Malaysia at the moment ada berkembang atau sudah mencapai satu tahap yang boleh dibanggakan sejak Prof. Hasnul dan juga Niranjan introducekan di Unimas dulu. Sebab pada ketika itu saya masih ingat 1994, 96, 98 electronic art ini agak berkembang, agak melonjak pada masa itu, selalu dibincangkan. Tapi at this point of time, saya rasa electronic art ini nampak sudah mula menguncup ataupun sudah mula pudar kerana tidak ramai yang explore ataupun mengangkatnya lagi lebih tinggi dari tahap yang sudah ada pada tahun 90-an dulu. What do you think, Niranjan, in the what you call in the international art scenario maybe, and also a local scenario? So any one of you, please give some comment. I'd like to know about it. Thank you very much, Rupesh and everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, if I may. Ranjan ya, saya
Ya,
jawab dulu ya. Okay. I think it is not really about forefronting art because the situation, the context, the players, the time, of course, the space, all those are dynamic things. Yeah. One thing that is for sure is change. So we need to know that change. We need to be friendly with change, and that notion of apa tu orang kata kesementaraan, ephemerality itu adalah salah satu daripada ciri yang kita perakui dalam waktu dulu istilahnya e-art. Jadi begitu juga dari segi pengistilahan e-art itu boleh kita debatkan. Mungkin sekarang ini tidak lagi digunakan istilah e-art. Dan perlu diingat ya, at one point there were many names, computer art, digital art, info art, data art, so many different names. And then somehow after siapa apa tu Rupesh, Malowich ya? The theory of new media, Malowich.
Language of new media.
Theory of new media.
Language of new media.
Language of new media. So he came with that book that somehow became like a kitab. So the word new media became the buzzword, which I tend to agree also because menarik lah istilah new tu, tapi itu akan jadi benda lain. I like the word media and madya. Anyway, back to question daripada Bahar tadi. Mungkin salah satu daripada fitrah kalau kita lihat sesuatu itu dari segi fraktal dan sebagainya, dia akan dissolve, dia akan bifurcate, dia akan mencapai dan dia akan jadi macam-macam lah yang kita tak tahu pun kan. So sekarang ni saya lihat saya pun dah tidak begitu aktif dalam konteks apa ni orang kata contemporary visual art scene ni, sebab saya rasa ada banyak lagi ruang-ruang lain yang saya nak terokai dalam usia-usia saya remaja lanjut ni. Tapi kita kena lihat apa saja amalan kita ni, apa saja nama yang kita nak bagi dalam konteks yang integrated ya. Kalau kita katalah sebagai contoh urban setting. Dalam urban setting ni ada apa yang dipanggil gig economy kan. I hope saya explain diri saya dengan betul lah ya. Part of gig economy ni has to do with creating events, placemaking, has to do with urban rejuvenation, has to do with creating experience become a part of this gig economy or experience economy. When there's a term called experience economy, and it is also an extension of urbanization or gentrification. And then you have to look at the whole thing, not only e-art but art in general in relation to mental health, to sustainability, to wellness. And now we have this participatory kind of approach towards arts, where art is not anymore exclusive, and art is not something that you only enjoy in gallery, or it is not only for a certain section of the society, the elite group of the society. It is about inclusiveness. It is about togetherness. It becomes like a transmediating kind of a platform for us to engage with something that may not be related to art at all. So we have to look at the whole thing in a very integrated way. So maybe the result or the consequence of that is this e-art itu akan dissolve, dan kalau itu yang perlu berlaku, no problem kan, tak ada masalah. Kita bukan memegang satu bidang tu seolah bidang itu perlu jadi kekal sampai bila-bila, sebab the nature of knowledge itu dia sentiasa dynamic kan. Jadi kalau mungkin lepas ini dah tak ada istilah new media pula. Sekarang ni ada macam-macam ya, artificial intelligence, pattern recognition, professional lah benda-benda ni kan. Now ada virtual environment, virtual reality, the implication of virtual reality towards so many things, augmented reality, but of all AI dengan big data, itu belum lagi NFT. Rupesh kau suruh aku cakap pasal NFT lagi, menakutkan. So we have there are so many things happening around us, 3D print, nanotechnology, all these important for us to sort of know, because our life has to do, akan terkesan dengan semua ni. Jadi art itu harus dilihat dalam konteks yang begini, ya. Jadi dia tidak boleh lagi di satu bidang kan. Mungkin untuk kenang-kenangan lah, satu masa dulu Hasnul dengan Ranjan pernah bersama-sama di Unimas bla bla bla. So we are thankful for that, but it is not about us lah at the end of the day. It is about how we contribute towards the larger apa ni orang kata penerokaan ilmu. Itu jawapan saya lah. Saya harap saya jawab. Ranjan lah.
Saya lebih saya rasa sebenarnya I agree with everything yang Hasnul cakap tu, tapi what is art kind of becomes a question lah. So yang E itu memang saya setuju 100%, right? The E has moved from art to life. Okay. So yang kita menerokai, yang those before us explored and we took for granted. Now what we explored is taken for granted. Even my children can do better than me. So okay, that's one aspect. I think in a way that's what Hasnul is talking about. But on the other hand, I lament the fact that even when we were there, the Malaysian scene found it quite difficult to support very experimental and critical works that would get support in other places, right? So I think this situation has gotten more extreme. So like if it's in the university, we were so lucky to get this kind of support that we got to make art, right? But now if you're in the university working with technology, I suspect, I don't know lah, but I suspect that the pressure will be to make something that serves industry. Even our time, Hasnul ingat tak sugar glass?
Yeah,
it's a private joke.
Yeah.
So even at the time, that was the idea of Multimedia Super Corridor, is not to make art, but we found a space and we got support. And I think that idea of people using the latest cutting edge developments in a critical, exploratory, meaningful way, that thing needs support. And in our time, I think we had, fortunately, support in Unimas, but more than that, there was still some quite strong influence of Balai still. Not like before, but still okay, right? But in the time that has passed, the commercial in the art world, so dealing not with the E, but with the A, in the art world in Malaysia, the dominance now is private galleries and dealers, even, up to the level of Ilham, which is separate from the Balai, with a maybe more academic agenda. But even so, it's that ecology. So in that space, I feel Malaysia is lacking for support for people doing experimental, critical, non-market work in any field, including E. So the answer, I feel, yes, I feel maybe the level hasn't risen since our time, not a lot. People have made a few things. Rupesh has done some work, and others that I don't know, some I can't remember, have done works. But those who are going forward seem to be those working in a more industrial and application. Seni gunaan lah. Like last time Unimas is gunaan dan kreatif.
Ranjan, mungkin siapa nama Paiman, but they're not here. Siapa selain daripada Paiman, siapa nama brother tu aku lupa. Fadli. But of course, dia pun tak ada dalam ni. Ada tak sini Fadli? Tak ada.
Tak ada.
Okay. So maybe he's probably doing something, but I can't speak on his behalf, kan?
Yeah, I've been watching on Facebook, kan? All the music. Yeah, that's right. That's right. The sound work. There's stuff going on.
And then I bagi example lah, senang. Kita abstract konsep ni susah sikit. Okay, there were few people lah yang ada dulu waktu awal-awal ya. Contoh lah selepas saya kan. Kamal Sabran contoh. Okay lah. Kamal Sabran dia mencapah pergi kepada sound. Okay. Experimental sound. And then dia buat PhD dia on sound therapy. And now he is like among the pioneers of healing through sound. And then he's doing research. I mean, he got grants also. I mean, dia banyak duit jugalah dari segi grant dan sebagainya. Tapi dia at the same time, dia sudah pergi ke arah itu. Jadi bila kita tanya Kamal, kau buat IAT lagi tak? Dia takkan dia cakap dia buat IAT.
Ya, ya.
Dia tak kata, oh aku buat IAT, aku sambung apa yang kau punya legacy. Tak semestinya. Dia dah jadi something else. Dia dah pergi ke
Ya, faham.
dia jadi pokok lain. Tapi dia datang
Ya.
daripada dulu ya, kalau masa Kamal buat dia punya muzik daripada outer space tu, siapa pun tak apa layan dia kan. Tapi kita lihat ya perkembangan itu. Saya lihat itu satu contoh yang menarik. Itu Kamal Sabran. Mungkin Fadli juga dengan kapal lorik dia. Mungkin tidak begitu teoretikal, tetapi dari segi percubaan, usaha organisasi, mencipta satu ruang baru.
Ada. Ya.
Oh ya, sangat ada. Kalau you tengok kapal lorik tu punya bangunan, sangat ada. Tapi konten ni kita tak tahulah. Saya tak boleh cerita lah sebab saya tak pergi tengok kan. Mungkin Pak Iman boleh tolong explain on that lah. Sebab Fandi pun tak ada kan. So
Okay, Dr. Hasnul. Thank you very much for the explanation tadi tu. Dan juga saya amat berterima kasih kepada Ranjan berkenaan dengan your explanation regarding to our art, electronic art, tak sampai ke tahap yang mature, you know. Ya, jadi I still remember as the late Piadasa said to me, the few of the art, maybe I can even say Malay art, tak sampai kepada tahap yang betul-betul mencapai kepada puncak. Yang saya maksudkan tadi ialah macam electronic art kita, Hasnul dan juga Ranjan telah memulakan. Namun begitu dalam perjalanannya itu kita tidak sampai ke tahap kerana ada dislocation. I want to quote you lah, Prof. Hasnul. Ada dislocation sehingga hari ini masih ada dislocation dalam IAT ni. Yang ada saya nampak macam you sebut tadi, Kamal Sabran menampakkan satu kematangan dari peringkat itulah saya rasa. Itu sebab saya ingin mendapatkan beberapa nama dalam senario seni lukis kita yang barulah, pelukis-pelukis baru yang masuk ke dalam arena seni elektronik, kerana kita tak boleh lari dari seni elektronik ni dalam keadaan zaman sekarang ni semuanya elektronik. Dan saya ingin melihat, kerana saya kurang berminat untuk balik ke tradisi begitu lama, asyik melukis dan lukis atau arca yang kekal, yang statik sejak dari zaman dulu sampai sekarang. I want to see something. Saya harapkan kita juga begitulah, rakyat Malaysia ni ingin melihatkan sesuatu yang baru. Walaupun electronic art tu bukannya baru, tapi kita nak melihat dari tahap ke manakah dia punya kematangan dan maturity dia tu. Kerana banyak seni dalam dunia ni yang tak sampai ke maturity yang macam western art contoh. Minta maaf lah, bukan saya nak mengangkat western art ni, tapi maturity-nya tak sampai, ataupun Renaissance for example kan. Itulah saya maksudkan dari Dr. Hasnul, Prof. Hasnul dengan juga Niranjan.
Saya bagi contoh lagi satu. Saya boleh all these are open-ended discussion kan. So I can understand you punya point tu, and I sort of agree juga, tapi it's very difficult to pinpoint bila kita cakap tahap. Bila tahap ni kita cakap pasal ada 100 ke 200 kan, 100 ke 50 ke 70. I give you an example lah. Saya baru-baru ni saya menghakimi satu pertandingan art science art science. Dalam pertandingan itu dia tidak bagi karya, kita bagi projek. Projek itu berdasarkan data tentang laut di Tioman. Data itu datang daripada seorang penyelidik, pakar penyelidik dalam bidang oceanografi untuk membantu sistem tsunami. Jadi data tu diperolehi daripada research dia. Kemudian seorang lagi pensyarah yang kepakaran dia adalah data visualization, mengambil data itu dan bekerja sama dengan seorang lagi pensyarah yang lain yang pakar dalam bidang LED, electrical engineering, convert data tadi tu kepada lampu LED warna biru. Kemudian berjumpa pula dengan Nasir Baharudin yang menggunakan rumah Melayu tradisional yang lama, dipasang sistem lampu LED biru itu di bawah rumah, kemudian menggunakan data daripada ombak itu, jadi convert ombak itu, ketinggian dan rendah ombak itu kepada intensiti lampu LED. Jadi rumah tu kelihatan seperti terapung dan sebagainya. Saya tak tahulah sama ada itu level yang tinggi atau level antarabangsa atau level Malaysia atau level lokal. Tapi bila saya melihat itu satu contoh bayangan kepada apa yang mungkin berlaku pada masa akan datang. Jadi kita tidak lagi melihat ianya mungkin art as art itself, tapi that notion of clearly demarcated separation between art or science or technology may not be that important anymore. So the whole thing is about what? It is about experience. It is about experience. Jadi experience itu boleh saja dimunculkan dari kebolehan kita tentang seni, elektronik, tentang animasi, tentang virtual reality, whatever. But the question is, what kind of experience that we want people to experience? Itu dia. Jadi kalau kita bergaduh ni art ke, ini kalau dah art pula, ini art, elektronik art ke, painting ke, printmaking. Saya rasa itu mungkin boleh kalau nak layan, tapi saya rasa itu satu pilihan yang saya tak akan pilih lah. Jadi saya nampak potensi ini dalam Art Science Initiative dan sudah dimulakan. Sebenarnya hasrat itu sudah bermula tahun 2000 dulu, baru setelah 20, I don't know how 20 years baru kita dapat buat betul-betul. Dan kita nampak hasilnya. Even Rupesh salah seorang daripada pemenangnya, dia membuat AI punya installation. Dan Rupesh menang tu by merit ya, sebab kita vote, ada 7 orang panel members yang vote. Dan itu satu contoh ya, dia argue about subjectivity dalam artificial intelligence. Itu bagi saya dari segi pencapaian bertaraf dunia dan bertaraf antarabangsa. Tetapi ia tidaklah berlaku di bawah ketiak balai seni negara. Ataupun ada kurator balai seni negara mengatakan ini karya yang bertaraf tinggi, ataupun pengarah balai seni negara mengatakan inilah karya yang hebat, atau ada seorang kurator yang selalunya kita akan jadikan sebagai penulis kitab mengatakan oh ini karya yang hebat. Tak payahlah, mungkin itu tak perlu lagi kot agaknya, mana kita tahu kan. Mungkin tak perlu ada sistem itu lagi. Jadi saya lebih suka begitu. Saya lebih suka keterbukaan begitu kerana ia mengizinkan apa orang kata berlakunya proses silang ini. Dan silang ni pada saya sihat. Saya suka kan. Jadi kalau dalam proses itu pengistilahan art tu menjadi historical saja pun saya tak kisah. Okey, tak ada masalah. Kan? Yang penting experience tu. Experience apa kan? Saya suka sesuatu yang membuatkan saya rasa kagum dan as I said before, humility. Siapa nama TC ada something ya. TC ni menarik juga kalau kita tanya dia kan. Maybe dia nak sembang apa pun cakap. TC. TC?
Hi sir. Good evening, Professor Hasnul, Prof Niranjan.
Hey.
It's quite interesting to listen to all those stuff. And I believe that this is the second time I met you, and this is in the virtual. I met you the first time in Balai. So it's quite interesting to have to listen to what you've been discussing just now. What is actually I tried to mention in the chat room is actually like it's like too tired to really argue in the art or non-art things, you see. I rather see those people who are really enjoy when they do art. I mean, what I'm referring is like they are doing sketching, they are really referring to what they've been, the experience they get, and do the discussions. And this is why also I conducted every week with those people online and sketch, and we have a very nice discussion throughout that. So this is something that I think this is what we need to look into, you see, throughout these legacy things, because we learned everything from what we have been gone through from these modern things and postmodern things. And even though we also exploring those e-arts in terms of Malaysia cultures and Malaysia's context, then and what's next? These are things I always ask myself, what next? I already get this. And Prof. Niranjan already did so much, and Prof. Hasnul also did so much in this in their time, you see. But how about in my time? What I should leading to, and what I should do for the public, you see. So I also stopped doing a lot of art stuff when I was in Kelantan because I involved in those teaching stuff. So, but now I already venture into a new place again. I believe that it's a new depart for me to into something else. I don't know. It's also this pandemic things, right? It forces us to look into the root of us, you see, back to the basic that what you should do for life. So yeah, this is what
I can relate to what this is doing. I think when it comes to plein air, basic, going back to the basic of art making, plein air drawing, see what you paint, what you see, and I also do that again and again and again, not in a consistent basis, and I don't have any problem with that. I think that's a choice that we make in our life, kan? After we have been questioning and then we got exhausted. That happened to Pia. He told me he got burnt out after Mystical Reality. Then after he got burnt out, he drew his mother, I think, or in a realistic way. There was a series of drawing where so why you something like that after all your conceptual work? He said he was tired, exactly like your sentiment.
exactly, so tired, you see.
So tired, kan? So I can totally understand it. That happened to me also. This kind of burn-out situation until I went to hospital and so on. I had to ask myself a question. That's why I went back to basics. So I can totally relate to that. That's a choice, bro.
Yeah,
it's a choice. Enjoy your choice. Enjoy your choice. But at the same
after
time,
the QR code, I really stopped, you see.
but it's a choice. You have done you have delivered, bro. You have done your job. You won a prize. If you ask me, I think that was one of the most sophisticated. I don't want to call it art, whatever. It is one of the most sophisticated artworks that I've ever seen. So you have done your job. So if you decide, okay, I want to go and do some sketching in Kajang, whatever, it's your right to do that. Enjoy, kan? Tapi ada juga orang lain, adik-adik kita yang juga perlu bertanya soalan yang kritikal daripada hanya setakat mengguna saja. Dan tambah lagi sekarang kan, kita kena membuatkan mereka bertanya, apa faedah kau guna you engage with the handphone 24 hours. So we have to make them question, and I think they have to do that rather than just become a passive consumer. So it is for them lah kan. Maybe TC is also in that. You are part of the legacy. Mungkin cara you tengok hidup you sekarang ni dah berbeza, tapi ada pembelajaran yang you terima daripada orang kata you pergi meneroka minda lah kan, you go. I've witnessed that and it was very interesting. So thank you for your opinion, bro.
Yeah. Thanks for the talks. It's so nice.
Yeah.
Prof, I have to interfere a bit. Sorry, because of course the time. Looking at time, it's already 11:40. So I don't want to hold people long. If people are okay hanging around, we can go on a bit more.
I think we have to close it.
Itulah
kita kena keluar lah, kesian. Kadang orang segan nak keluar kan.
Betul.
Nanti CS boleh tak cakap sikit berkenaan dengan kapal lori?
Jadi kapal lori tadi kau diam je aku tanya.
Tak ada, sebab apa? Sebab tadi saya nampak semua rancak cakap, saya pun tak boleh nak slot dalam. Okey, ni sebenarnya kapal lori ni saya sebenarnya telah menjawab apa Dr. Bahar cakap sebenarnya. Sebab dia sekarang banyak karya-karya yang bersifat eksperimental berlaku dekat sana. Yang mana dia ada sekarang ni dengan video art, lepas tu pula macam mana dia dengan ada workshop tertentu dekat sana. Jadi dia banyaklah melibatkan perkara-perkara video art, tetapi dengan keadaan yang baru melalui handphone saja. Kan dia jadi pembawakan daripada teknologi daripada bersifat dulu ke sifat yang lebih santai. Tetapi amat baguslah penerokaan budak-budak muda ni berkenaan dengan perkara tu. Kemudian vision dia bagus sebab apa, dia tak nak melibatkan kapal lori terkongkongnya universiti punya approach. Dia dalam berkarya. Jadi dekat situ satu tahap mereka bercita-cita untuk nak membuat satu paper yang tidak melibatkan seperti Scopus Myra, tetapi based on macam mungkin attitude macam School of Frankfurt dia cakap. Ya, jadi dekat situ lebih sebab apakah tujuan yang kami berbincang, apakah sebenarnya tujuan dalam untuk mengembangkan ilmu seni? Adakah kepada universiti ataupun pada masyarakat?
Ya, betul.
Jadi dengan masyarakat bererti kita kena attach dengan masyarakat. Dengan bagaimana kita nak membawa masyarakat tahu art. Okey, sebagai contoh di Perca pun sama, yang mana Suhaila and the team attachment dengan budak, kadang-kadang pun buat happening art, buat kek dengan budak, buat planting dengan budak-budak. So itu adalah perkara-perkara yang dibuat lah. Tapi tidaklah disiplin dia berlaku cuma nak melayan contemporary art. Kadang-kadang tradisi pun kita layan juga.
Faham.
Itu je lah. Tapi nampak gayanya kapal lorik makin visi dia jelas. Yang sekarang ni nampak kan dia ada konsisten. Dan Rupesh pun ada attachment, ada projek baru dengan orang. Itu sajalah saya nak beritahu.
Very much, Paiman. Thank you, Dr. Hasnul, Rupesh and
itu
Niranjan.
kapal lorik.
Dr. Wahab.
Saya rasa kapal lorik ini satu case study, work in progress, the whole thing kan. Cuma saya punya pesanan dokumen. Jangan biar ia berlalu begitu saja tanpa dokumentasi. Diamalkan kerja dokumen ni sebab bila Nur Azizan Paiman Fadli sudah berusia 60 tahun, nanti kau orang menyesal.
Itu sebenarnya benda yang saya cakap dengan Fadli. Apa Niranjan cakap dulu, karya dulu, the first electronic art. Bila Niranjan minta gambar work saya yang dekat depan yang Waira tak suka tu, pun Waira tak suka. Cakap kandang kambing. You still remember Niranjan?
Yeah.
So saya cakap sebenarnya kita masalah artis ni documentation paling teruk. So daripada situ sebenarnya kena belajar, apa-apa show pun semua kena buat documentation. Anyway, thank you very much for your advice lah Niranjan masa tu. Thank you.
Thank you for making some of the most interesting artwork in the recent years.
Yeah.
From what I know lah, I mean dari jauh kan, so I don't know what's going on, but I want to add one thought just to summarize the discussion from Dr. Baha's question, which I think is an important question, and Hasnul's answer and the examples, so there is stuff going on. It's what I think the main difference is, whether the quality is high or low is hard to tell, and even our work compared to what, right? But the category of art, so it's a taxonomic problem. The category of art is a modernist category. Dulu orang Melayu tak ada istilah seni tanpa budaya kan, luar dari budaya tak ada perbezaan di antara seni dan budaya. India pun sama, Cina mungkin ada, Barat ada, tapi untuk rakyat Malaysia, budaya di Malaysia, it's a modernist thing. So maybe in the new media has dissolved that category, so it's hard to see. So it's a more integrated playing field. And the thing that is ended is not electronic art per se or new media art, but the category of art is gone down as in importance. Maybe something like that.
Okay.
Okay, yes. I think I have to conclude this. Okay.
Tutup kedai.
Yes, okay. So thank you all for the discussion. I still have quite a lot of slides to show, but I think we are running out of time. And as usual, as was Prof. Hasnul have said, when both of you get together, mesti every time end up in the same position. Tak cukup masa, tak habis bercakap, tak boleh cover a lot of things.
Saya cadangkan beginilah, kita officially kita sudah diskusi kita ni sudah tamat lah. Jadi kalau ada sesiapa yang segan nak keluar tapi ada nak tidur ke nak kerja lain tu kita tak payah hold mereka lah kan. Tapi kita tak nak, ada setengah orang ni tak nak keluar sebab dia segan kan. Jadi
Betul,
kalau
betul.
nak excuse kita bagi. Tapi antara kita, saya Ranjan dengan Rupesh ataupun siapa-siapa, saya nak hang out lagi.
Bagus.
Sebab saya tak ada peluang. Macam ni. Sorry lah saya. Jadi saya tak nak indulge, force orang lain to indulge dengan saya, dengan kita lah kan. Jadi kalau mereka nak excuse, kita ni macam sembang lah. Mereka datang singgah, nak kena balik dah, tidur nanti bini marah. Okay, kita kena benarkan lah yang lain-lain tu. Tapi kalau Rupesh nak sambung-sambung, sembang-sembang santai, saya okey je. Saya dah lama tak
Betul.
bersembang
I
dengan
really,
Ranjan ni kan.
Bagus.
Prof, I really want to talk about the relocations and also review. I think it's an important event, and also to look back lah those things, and also your recent work, hero, and also cowboy, and all this pun something that
Cowboy.
you want to touch lah. But again, like what you have said, saya pun tak nak people hanging around here out of respect ke apa ke, no lah.
Apa
People can leave, they
nak
can
tidur tu boleh tidur. Ada few dah cakap lah. Saya cakap terima kasih.
Yeah, so like why don't we actually give a small break lah? Take 5 minute break.
5 minute break.
Semua keluar, semua boleh off screen. So siapa nak masuk balik, kita teh tarik session.
Good suggestion.
So kita keluar dulu sekejap 5 minit kan? Macam mana? Boleh? Tanya Hafizan Nizam juga.
At least tutup individual screen ke whatever.
Ya, betul.
Boleh. Okay.
Just turn off your mic.
Okay.
Turn off and we personally turn off lah, and then come back 5 minutes.
Okay. Alright. 5 minit ya. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you all.
Terima kasih. Siapa yang nak excuse
Very
tu,
much
saya
to all.
terima kasih banyak-banyak. Terima kasih.
Okay. So fast you're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, yeah. Okay, I hear you now.
Yeah, TC, when did we meet?
This one, Balai event.
Which
After
one? Which
When the time that you come back,
which
the
event? Huh?
review.
Review.
what is it? Yeah, review events. I met you once, physically.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not in touch other than a few artists that I follow and a few that I know from Facebook. Like, I'm not in the position to comment on what's going on.
Yeah.
But I do have a sense that there is a difficulty now to get institutional support. You have to make your own scene now, right? Unless you're commercial,
Right.
it's not like before. Before, you
Even though in
just pandai
commercial,
cakap,
have
pandai
to
tulis,
really,
somebody will look for you. Okay, Balai wants to take a
yeah,
show to Czechoslovakia. Can you write? And then,
right.
okay, action, on. So that thing how I see is gone, right? It's gone. So now there's a new
Everything
scene,
have to
more
rely on
diverse
ourselves,
in a
eh?
way. Less monolithic, but less I don't know, less supportive of alternative approaches lah. So the people who we talked about, Kapalore, whatever, are doing their own. That is on their own, not like us under
Right.
Unimas or under Balai. Me, I did a lot at the Balai, a lot of curation, super stuff I enjoyed, but I was under naungan. Ada orang
Okay.
besar di
Yeah.
atas kan yang dia
Right.
memberi peluang kita terima. Okay, but now I think it's not like that.
Ada juga,
Yeah, exactly.
sedikit, ada macam sekarang ni dia sudah ada satu badan lah, maybe I pun tak tahu macam mana struktur sekarang ni, saya pun pening ada satu makhluk,
Berbeza lah, sudah berubah struktur dia.
satu makhluk nama dia Cendana. Macam yang saya tahu patung Cendana kan, dulu cerita Melayu siapa nama pelakon tu, dia akan berlakon dalam filem Cendana. But anyway, Cendana satu badan yang it's a body that is partly government that facilitates funding for art activities. So in terms of fundings, I think probably I don't know. I'm not in the position probably to comment. I don't have enough sufficient data kan. So but your impression is that now there is a more sort of a, orang kata, satu struktur yang lebih mewah lah daripada dulu. Jadi banyaklah pihak. Malah kapal lorek pun dapat juga dana pun daripada, saya tak tahu, lupa Cendana ataupun mungkin Paiman bercerita.
Then I nak come back at you. But okay, kalau ada, okay, itu best lah. Saya gembira, tapi ada perbezaan juga. Dulu, okay, mungkin saya tak tahu, saya tanya lah. Dulu, melalui struktur yang ada, kita mengumpulkan kebolehan dalam segi teori, kritikan, curatorship, ya, yang canggih. Kalau PR, kalau Ismail Zain, the institution was able to contribute to the whole field because the leadership. And
Hmm.
if the leader is not the brain can be brought in, right? And there was this idea of a kind of a national narrative, and there was a steering of that narrative by these people that were able to direct, right? So that's a weakness in a way, because it becomes a monolithic narrative of Malaysian art, betul, and some people dominated it, true. But still, that relationship between the money, the funding, and the authorship of the narrative was quite strong and quite effective. Tapi sekarang, who is doing that idea of organizing the narrative? It's now more rhizomic, right? More fragmented. And the middle story is not being told. The general story, seems to me lah, it's not being told. And so maybe what's happening is, even though there's interesting things going on, nobody's collecting and saying, oh, this is a Malaysian narrative of experimental art going on now. Is that possible? Am I off track or?
No, you are right. I agree with your assessment. There's no tak ada shared narrative lah. Semua berpecah kan, semua broken into fragmented pieces kan. Jadi sekurang-kurang kalaupun bukan singular monolithic narrative, tetapi ada beberapa shared narrative pun okey juga. Ini tak ada langsung, jadi masing-masing dengan naratif sendiri. Jadi dia jadi bersepah-sepah lah. Kemudian sampai sekarang pun kita tidak ada story. Bila kita kata okey lah, modern art story tu mungkin dah ada, tapi selepas itu kalau tak ada satu story pun mungkin ada banyak story. Banyak story menarik ni kan. Mungkin yang berlaku di Kelantan tu ada story lain, di Sabah mungkin ada story lain, di ini pun mungkin ada story lain. Jadi mungkin yang itu sedang dibuat. Saya tak tahu, saya pun is not in touch anymore with the national institution, with Balai. I heard that they are doing this mapping. I hope that mapping can help to, but the mapping came from a very economic driven purpose. I think I can agree with it. Because of the pandemic, they need to dia kena recharge balik kita punya art ecosystem. So dia kena map balik. So I sort of agree with that. Kalau boleh lah, kalau boleh ditolong kan. So siapa nama kapal lorik dia, saya rasa dia sebahagian daripada, dia boleh jadi kalau dia mahu lah, ataupun tidak, pulang lah. Sebahagian daripada this gig economy. Gig economy ni dia mungkin dia tidak bergantung kepada cerita besar atau naratif besar. Dia macam dia bukan Starbucks. Tapi dia kopi-kopi kecil yang juga boleh menarik minat juga. Orang nak cerita-cerita kecil ni, naratif-naratif kecil ni. Jadi
so on the positive side, that means there's maybe the old tree has died and the new trees are coming slowly. It's going to take time, but last time cannot because the old tree was so big.
Still
Cannot.
ada.
Now ada yang like Ipoh kan? Ipoh.
Coming up lah all these different centers kan. Bringing multiple narrative, tapi okay lah, tapi kena dia orang panggil diri mereka ni gig economy ni, dia dekat dengan kolektif. So the collective can this is what I meant by gig economy. It's not just art aja. Dia macam yang Paiman terlibat baru ni sebab environment. Dia buat kerja dengan kuasa. It's a NGO. Young people also. And they are dealing with Segari. Segari is a actual location. Berlaku macam-macam perkara yang itu sedang mereka terlibat dalam conservation. So very interesting narrative dia. Itu yang saya sebut, saya cakap dengan you itu semalam. We are in this together. Jadi ini satu contoh, maknanya tak usahlah cakap pasal kau artis, kau apa, kau ini kan. Sekarang ni kita in this together when it comes to the environmental destruction. We are in this together. So you apa? Oh, saya painter. Oh, what can painter do? Apa yang painter boleh buat? Macam sekarang macam katalah TC dia buat plein air kan. Saya lihat plein air tu dari segi mental health. Jadi kita reinitiate plein air kita reinitiate plein air dan kita buat online. PTC pun buat online plein air. Mereka melukis pemandangan yang remote ya di tempat lain kan TC kan. But
Right, right.
tapi saya lihat tu dari segi sumbangan dia kepada mental health. We need to be able to see things outside. Kalau kita dah duduk dalam kan. So itulah saya tengok art sekarang ni mungkin dari segi yang begitulah kan. Sama lah macam
quite close lah, because this is like to gather those public who are not really trained in the arts to attach with the performance. So this is something that I try to create not the experience only on the gallery itself, but it's something like it can go out of the gallery. You see, more
to the
those
public.
people who like to paint, but they're not really trained, and they will be love it so much. Something like that. I would like to see that.
Plus that one is therapeutic also, TC. Sebab
yes, exactly.
go-
But
you
I
go
don't want to claim that lah, because this is a big word for me so far, because it's still beginning. So I still don't want to claim that. I just want to make it just casual lah for those people, or else the people will be threatened by me. You see, with those the giant words.
Yeah, betul juga. Yeah, I
So
understand
I
that.
keep it very simple. Even though Sulaiman joined me, and it's sometimes he tried to come up this very terminology terms. I tried to stop him slowly. You see, because he would threaten out those people and run away from the platform.
Betul.
I think it's something that I try to hold lah. So just for the public, they don't even need to pay. You see, in the US, in the UK, if they join those like figure drawing online, they have to pay. But for our platform, it doesn't matter. I just spend sometimes, even though I don't need to spend so much on the internet. You see, so let these people and just have fun with that. In 3 hours time, it will be good.
Maybe salah satu untuk Niranjan punya, saya jadi informer dia lah kan. One of the things that has been coming out for the past few years lah is this thing called art on location, participatory art, where the idea of presenting art, enjoying art is not anymore in a gallery. So yang itu pun di peringkat nasionalnya, the National Art Gallery is sort of taking that approach lah kan. But I don't know whether it's going to be successful or not, but that's one of the things that they are doing lah. But it has been done by many people before. When you go to the street, like what TC said lah, you cannot go to the street as an artist. You cannot use the jargons, like, oh, we need watercolor wash technique lah, dry on
No, we
whatever.
don't do that. We are frightened people.
Sama juga macam saya selalu buat basking lah kan. Saya at one point after my father passed away, I was tired like you lah, almost like burnt out kan. So I did a lot of street performances kan, and it helped me a lot to share art without using all these scary things and jargons and imposing myself as an artist kan. So I found that very interesting, termasuk geng-geng plein air ni. Sebab orang datang kat dia kan, dia macam attract people to come.
Right.
Dan dia macam magnet, dia certain kind of, because orang yang melukis plein air ni selalunya, kalau yang saya baca lah kan, ini antara kita je lah TC dia berada dalam theta state. Dia theta state ni dia sangat khusyuk kan.
State. Yes.
Jadi orang tertarik, dia magnetic. Theta state ni dia magnetic.
Because it's like relaxing, you see. It's a very comfort and really relaxing state. This is
jadi
something
orang
that
suka
I
kan?
understand lah.
Orang nak, all of bestnya relax orang ni kan. Jadi orang pun nak berada dalam aura tu kan. Jadi saya tengok banyak macam itu. So it's very good lah Fauzi. Kan? So itu salah satu senario di Malaysia lah Ranjan ya. Yang saya boleh.
But sebenarnya bukan saja di Malaysia.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. But this is the demise of art, kan? That we've been talking about ourselves in the beginning.
Yeah,
that the media, that lot of movements, art as a category, not art as a making of things nice, kan? Back to Kumaraswamy's idea is that in the modern world, the artist is a special kind of person, but in the traditional world, every person is a special kind of artist, whether you're making a bowl or whether you're doing calligraphy or whether you're tanam padi, you do bersungguh-sungguh and you do it as a kewajipan and kehalusan, and then you are artist already. I mean, in that sense, you are making art. You're not an artist, but you know. I remember the first thing I did in the Malaysian art scene was you know the story, I'm sure, but Shukri's Kiara Gallery and Lennon. The first thing, he's my first kind of actual member in the art scene, kan? I wrote for their catalog, Kiara Gallery's first show catalog. I wrote, and when we went to the opening, and me, because I'm not one of the artists, okay, I wrote the catalog, and then there's a tea and everything, very nice in Maybank. And I also to the side a bit lah, because I wrote the catalog, but these guys are all ITM and they're all artists. And I also not yet artist. I also think, oh, okay, these are artists. I'm not artist. I'm trying to think how I can join the artists. So I'm standing something like that. And I went, they had some musicians from Shukri's place. I forget, Shukri's from Kedah or somewhere. So they had some village traditional musicians. And then I went to talk to them lah, you know. It's like shy a bit lah, you know, all the artists there. Okay. So I asked them, in some way I asked them the question about how do they sort of develop their art, you know, how do they do their performance? I spoke to them with the language of artists, and they didn't understand.
Of course
they
lah.
said, no, they said, no, we just farmers and we just play. And we, this is it. This is what we do. I said, no, but what you do is very high, very beautiful, and it's not an issue for them. They just do it.
They even do it every day, I guess.
Saya bagi saya contoh lah. Saya pergi ke Bagan Serai, this guy's house, right at the end of the kampung. Even kita tanya rumah Abang Mus kat mana, ikut jalan ni, go straight until tak ada jalan lagi. Maknanya rumah dia paling ujung sekali kan. Betul-betul saya tengok sungai tepi dan di belakang dia memang tak ada apa, gunung. So saya sampai tak ada jalan lagi. Memang rumah dia lah. And I saw the house betul-betul di tepi jeram. It's not even a river, it's a jeram apa, stream dengan batu-batu semua kan. Almost like a chalet lah. And this guy was living there dengan keluarga dia. Saya pergi jumpa dia sebab saya mahu buat dinding bertam, Ranjan, ya. It's a bertam waving wall for my house. So I had to go and see him because dia buat itu 4x8 punya dinding bertam. So I went to see him lah. Of course lah, me being an academician, I had to interview him. So he was not wearing anything, dia tak pakai baju apa-apa. Saya bawa kamera saya. And then the wife also said, pakailah baju, itu profesor datang nak interview kan. Dia kata, inilah baju aku. Kan, inilah aku punya uniform kan. You datang lah. So saya usik lah dia kan. Mamus, saya usik dia dengan soalan-soalan akademik kan. And I knew it already lah, I anticipated. He got very agitated lah. To a point he said, ni yang susah ni cakap dengan orang yang pandai-pandai di universiti ni. Dia kan, okay, itu satu lah. Saya tanya dia, mana abang belajar? Adik dia seorang lagi, abang Mat, dia buat multiple Fibonacci curve. Spiral. Yang menggunakan mathematical equation in order for you to get it perfect. Macam you jumpa dan you nampak dalam bunga matahari tu. So saya nampak dia buat di atas meja, dia buat anyaman menggunakan buluh untuk lapik meja. Tak ada apa-apa, no big deal for him. So, saya tengok amazed kan. Ini spiral structure ni, spiral geometry. Abang Mat belajar di mana ni? Dia cakap, tak ada belajar mana-mana. Pergi Thailand, tengok dekat ada satu kedai tu, saya nampak, saya ingat lah macam mana dia buat. Saya tiru, buat kat rumah. Okey, jadi pula. So, kan, you takkan dapat jawapan yang hebat-hebat. Sebab itu, so saya hypothesize lah. Saya tengok, perhati. Dia bukan in a conceptual sense. Dia in a living sense. Dia dalam blood dia. Dia duduk di ujung hutan tu, dia breathing Fibonacci tu. Dia breathing and living. It's not about having, it's about being kan. So no wonder lah bila kita nak cakap pandai-pandai dia macam ni, susah lah cakap orang pandai-pandai kan. Malah saya cerita dengan dia pasal mancing. Pasal dia minat mancing kan. Dia tak minat you cakap benda tinggi-tinggi. Walhal dia punya art tu, oh man, Saya tanya dia, kenapa kiri dengan kanan kena sama? Kan?
Okay.
Kenapa? Tak boleh kiri lain sikit dengan kanan. Dia kata semua benda mesti sama. Kalau tidak, tak boleh berdiri. So,
He learned from the nature, you see.
kalau betul lah, kalau kita berdiri, we take it for granted. When we are standing,
Yeah, exactly.
when all forces cancel each other, then only we can stand. If
Yeah.
there is one force stronger than another, we cannot stand. So dia cakap pasal balance tu, kau tak boleh berdiri, kau tak balance. Simple je. Aku dengar kan. Dan apa dia mesti ada bila nak buat benda ni kan? Macam mana macam mana abang boleh ingat pattern ni, complicated ni pattern ni? This is dia jawab tau. Kena ada kehendak lah. Kehendak tu means will.
Real, yeah.
You need dalam bahasa Melayu yang belajar Sufism, iradat, mesti ada kemahuan, kehendak. Macam mana Ranjan nak sebut the will.
The will, the desire, the will.
Ada desire. Kalau tak ada tu, you tengok. Ini dia cakap. Orang tengok, ada orang tengok saja. Dia tengok saja. Dia tak ada will. Macam saya tengok, saya ada will. Will saya nak buat tu. So kalau you nak tahu, you nak buat sesuatu, you kena tengok tu, you kena ada will. Bila you ada will, baru you boleh buat.
Baru dia keluar kemampuan.
Kemampuan tu. Saya tanya dia, you belajar, abang Mus belajar tak? Tak belajar. Dia pergi mana tau? Dia pergi Muzium Negara. Dia tengok itu Batam tu. Lepas tu dia kata, saya nak buat ni. Dia tengok lama-lama. This is how he said to me. Saya tengok lama-lama. Saya tengok dari dekat. Saya tanya Pak Gak boleh pergi dekat. Saya tengok. Tapi saya tengok dengan kehendak lah katanya. Itu perkataan dia. Saya balik, saya cubalah. Saya eksperimen dulu dengan kertas dulu. Tengok, jadi gitu.
So the concept of observation, you see.
There you go. In a very common language.
Yeah.
So I call it local genius lah.
Yeah. But we use this the very high words, you see. Observational. Something like that. But he already did it so well by his way. And this is also a ways of research, a primary data for him. You see.
For me also, kalau saya tengok theorize kan, memang sedap. Tapi bila saya pergi tengok habitat dia, then the answer for that is the habitat. Kalau saya bawa dia pergi ke pekan, dia tak boleh buat apa. Dia akan rosak. Dia akan hental, dia akan tension, stress, dia tak boleh buat. Dan ramai yang juga begitu. Mereka pindah kan, dislocation juga perkataan dia.
Yeah, again the brainwave lah. You see, the environment set up the brainwave, then he shoot to that, and he can react to that. You see, operationally well. We move to somewhere else. Like sometimes we go to the town and sketch. Sometimes we cannot do that. You see, sometimes I really cannot paint, even though it's so disturbing in the town sometimes. But I have to set myself into the environment. Only I can paint. So this is again with the brainwave. You see.
Yeah.
Environment.
Really
good experiment that.
Tapi yang Dr. Bahar cakap tadi, partly saya rasa setujulah. Saya anggap kualiti wacana tu kurang. Itu memang betul lah. I tak tahulah macam mana perkataan dia dalam bahasa Inggeris dan Ranjan. The quality of the discourse somehow for me lah, it's not my food anymore. Used to be the quality of the discourse. Now it's about what people do. Kau buat apa? It's mostly about that lah, what people do. But when you ask more than that, ni apa sebenarnya? What are you trying to discuss? Are you trying to explore? Tak ada. Itu saya rasa dari segi itu apa yang Dr. Bahar cakap tu betul lah. Ada penurunan yang ketara. So I can agree with the way dia compare antara dulu lah, masa kita dulu kan. Even Dr. Bahar pun beberapa penulisan dia yang awal, yang masa dia menulis tentang elektronik tu, saya antara yang baca, yang lain orang lain tak baca, tak rujuk pun tulisan dia. Kan?
Prof, actually in terms of that, and like I think there are many things happening. I agree lah, like urbanscape, so many other places where we actually see the use of technology for art. So one problem I have, the very obvious one, is asking the same question. And this is very frustrating. Like I know these questions has been asked
Hmm.
and has been answered and even been given
Documented.
solutions or even ideas and all that. Tapi like I don't know why. Like either people are ignorant or they're not referring, they're not doing enough research, or they don't even care. They just do and then just say I did the first time, or this is the first thing that I'm introducing in the world, or things like that. So that is a bit frustrating. Secondly, of course, even I also don't care. We do what we do, and if the art as how it operates in terms of structure and economics does not necessarily cater for us, we don't care. We just go and do what we want and we keep doing and we participate in wherever we can and all that. But the question is, what happens to that discourse at the center? Like, do we just ignore and leave it and do our own stuff and let them do? Because the center now is like driven by the market, like driven by the collector's desire, driven by, I know it's very frustrating and I stay away from that and I do my stuff, but however that get abandoned, like nobody cares about that. Nobody is bothered about that, especially people who are really critical, they move away. Itu
Tapi
yang a bit,
tapi yang itu menguasai, in a way dia tak menguasai wacana, dia menguasai dia menguasai arena.
Yes.
Dia mungkin tak menguasai wacana. Kan wacana tu macam saya sembang dengan Pak Mus tu lagi best wacana tu.
Betul. Betul.
Kan. Jadi mereka ni menguasai gelanggang. Jadi kalau kau nak cari makan kau pergilah, tak kisah. Macam Paiman cakap lah, kena layan contemporary art tu pilihan dia. Dia nak layan tu dia kena mainlah game tu. Kan, tapi ada benda lain yang dia buat yang dia bukan nak layan benda tu, dia nak layan dia punya tukang dia buat dia punya rumah ke apa, aku tak tahulah. Which for me the energy is much beautiful. Saya lagi tertarik dengan magnetic pull of that kind of energy kan, rather than just simply market. Market is market lah. I don't want to put myself as an enemy or antagonistic towards that because I understand the working of it. It's just that we have to be careful lah sebab it's quite predatorial kan.
Itulah, I agree.
Memangsa kan, dia boleh memangsa budak-budak yang baru yang tak tahu apa benda, easily boleh jadi mangsa kan. Kita nak tapi kita tak boleh lah nak letak everybody bawah ketiak kita.
Betul, itu yang kata.
Dia kena belajar lah. Betul lah, LTC kan, dia kena lah, dia kena tipu, kena apa, tak tahu lah, tapi dia kena belajar kan. Kita kena biar lah.
That's why I feel, as much as I agree and all that, but I still see that problem lingering lah. Like we just move on like what you
But
said.
actually, I also feel quite strongly, maybe it's a selfish thought, right? That all our contribution is not being remembered, one, okay? And two, it's a kind of waste, it's not being exploited.
Yes,
right? So that's what I told you before when you came to see me, that it's good for me, it's good for you, because you are remembering me, but you're also able to then stand on my shoulders. And I'm the old world, you are the new world, right? So the more connection you have with the past, the more you build. But the question is, just like before, is it the end of art? Now the question is it also this era the end of history? Because of the total connectivity, we don't care who did it first. We get our own audience. Itu saja. Kan? So history pun tak, the category of history pun tak penting sekarang. Kerana apa? Kerana teknologi. Sebab apa? Sebab teknologi. So art is gone. Let's say lah, extreme scenario. Art is gone. History is gone. Now what's left is experience.
Itu Pak Mael cakap. Pak Mael pernah cakap satu ketika dulu, tapi mungkin daripada sumber lain ya. Art dia mungkin boleh bermula sebagai anti-environment. Tapi akhirnya dia akan jadi environment. I tak tahulah, mungkin Rupesh pernah, saya lupa daripada essay mana, tapi saya pernah baca daripada Pak Mael lah kan. So dulu virtual ni anti-environment. Sekarang ni virtual ni is an environment already. Sudah menjadi sebahagian daripada lanskap kita kan, lanskap kesedaran kita. Jadi apa kita
kesedaran
nak buat? Jadi
kebiasaan.
Kebiasaan, kelaziman. Dulu online tu anti-environment. Sekarang ni sudah menjadi environment, sudah menjadi kebiasaan.
Yelah, dia
kan?
depends to the counter situation. No, kalau tak silap apa Pak Maya cakap.
Counter apa benda Man? Counter kan?
Counter situations.
Counter situation. Itu istilah dia pakai kan. Jadi sekarang ni kita kena cari anti-environment yang lain lah kot. Tak tahulah.
Tapi tak tahu problem dia sekarang ni pun kalau kita nampak dalam universiti pun sekarang ni when dia tengok stakeholder untuk komen. Kan? Kalau kita nampak kalau dekat masters dekat Shah Alam tu stakeholder dia collector.
Yes.
Jadi pemahaman daripada apa collector nak. Jadi dia tengok daripada tu stakeholder jadi ke arah mana work yang boleh dijual. Jadi kita nampak sekarang ni kalau dekat dalam school pun dah tak ada experimental work. Experimental work tak ada. Semuanya pakai canvas.
Okay. Sebelum kita this thing kita boleh get emotional about this. I know. It's good. I like it. I like people are passionate. Tapi kita tengok dari sudut pragmatik pula. Kan? Okay, kita boleh buat boutique school. Dia cater for the collector. Boleh juga kan? Kalau betul-betul nak kan. So we decide. Kita buat boutique kind of school. Cater for this gig economy, collector economy. And can contribute also towards the economy. You know, the whole thing, like so the point is kalau nak buat yang itu betul-betul serius lah. Buatlah khusus betul-betul. Art business, art marketing, art management, event management, branding, packaging, positioning, how to be influencer, how to sell your works online. Now even my wife are learning marketing online. She's 56 years old. Kan? She has to sell her work online, So if you want
but
to
you
make
see the syllabus never change.
But if you want to make it business, buat betul-betul. Tapi tak juga. Dia macam
don't see even new syllabus come out.
Pak Mael bagi tahu lah, neither here nor there. Dia tak lagi. So saya guna konsep multiple tracks. Okay. Semua student yang datang tu, kalau you buat dia punya diagnosis in terms of dia punya learning style, you akan dapati tak semuanya thinker. Dan tak semuanya tak semuanya learning by feeling. So you can do that. You can use this scope macam ni TC tahulah kan. Learning style inventory. Kan? You bagi interview, you tahu dia ni mana. So yang dua kita jadikan dia artis. Dia jadi artis lah. Dia cari makan lah jadi artis. Tapi kena ajarlah dia supaya tak jadi bodoh. Kan? Kena tipu ke kenapa ke jadi bangsa. Tapi kadang-kadang bagus juga campak je. Biar dia belajar dan dia sedar sendiri kan. So on another track is this experimental, this research. Something that you don't know yet whether dia punya pulangan dia ada pulangan komersial. Tapi dia lebih kepada penerokaan tentang isu-isu kemanusiaan yang terlibat dengan teknologi. Yes, saya sangat kritikal.
That is another thing, Prof. Like really, I'm not talking about like the idea of representation anymore. Really, art must come as a critique towards from a very humanistic perspective, like what it means to use technology and the acceleration of technology in terms of its progression and its shaping our culture.
Yang kita buat itu, kita buat upload download kan. Kau ingat kan, kita pakai critical theory, the concept of identity. Kita take off from identity. Siapa punya teori tu? Identity is always forming.
Yes.
It is not a static concept. It is not permanent concept. Identity is, siapa punya teori aku dah lupa, is forming, it's from critical theory lah.
Yes.
So we take off from that, we did the upload download. We experiment with the notion of national identity, Malaysian and Japanese. Okay lah, basically we screw up the whole concept lah of stable identity. That was what I meant by exploring the concept. Itu problem statement dia, kita terperangkap dengan satu konsep identity. Sekian. So kita menggunakan apa akan terjadi kepada konsep ini apabila kita semua berhijrah dalam dunia avatar. Kan? Okay, tengok avatar. Avatar. Dia ni Fuchao ke Cina mana ni kan? Tak tahu. Dia India mana? Tak tahu dia Indian ke? Dia Indian ke apa ke kalau ada avatar. Dan sekarang ni macam-macam avatar ada kan? The concept of avatar for example. So So again, that is one example of how we expand the problem statement, let's say for example identity, into a new context. But if you keep on asking the same question, tu aku tanya kau
Itulah.
lah.
That's the
Aku
thing.
tanya Ranjan lah. Kalau Ranjan, aku nak tanya kau tentang permasalahan identiti di Malaysia. Kau macam, teringat zaman masa MIS dengan PR bergaduh. Kan? Ada lagi. Ada lagi. Filem
Dah
ni
habis-habis pun.
filem ini masih ditayangkan lagi.
No, the thing,
Never ended,
Prof,
this thing.
the thing is, it's okay. Art ada lagi lah. The thing is even surprising. Akademia pun still bergaduh pasal benda ni lagi. Kita pergi conference pun, takkan benda ni lagi nak debate benda ni lagi. Tak habis lagi benda ni. So
dalam
it's still
okay, kalau you kalau saya bawa you punya research kan, AI. Subjectivity dalam AI kan. Scary bro. AI
Right.
how AI pattern recognition kan.
yes.
Scary bro, and they relate that to big data. Lagi scary. So and this is what happening in the scientific world lah. Scientific world ni scary.
Yes.
Neurophysics, nanotechnology.
Betul.
This NFT kan, lagi gila kau bagi aku this mining kan. Man kan. So and yet we are still talking about kau nak pakai baju apa, baju kau tu melambangkan kau identiti apa. Come on lah bro. So I'm getting old lah kan. So I don't think so lah. Lebih baik aku terjun sungai, mandi kat sungai je.
Itu lagi best.
But of course,
Back
like
to
you
the nature,
said,
is it?
some people they gain mileage from that.
Yes.
Political especially. So whether you're pro or against, it's not bukan soal dia. Soal dia, how good are you in capitalizing on that?
Yes.
So you can
And everybody is training you. Macam so all the system, everybody, you pun nak berlumba. Itu yang
macam Ranjan cakap lah tadi, dia kan jadi tokenistic. So kalau Ranjan buat apa, I don't know, something yang lagi, I don't know lah, mungkin dia buat dia punya tu dekat billboard ke apa kan, tak tahulah dia punya strategi kan. Strategi ganas lah kan. Oh, dia orang semua bising lah. Kan, viral Ranjan punya work. Oh, Ranjan tinggal keling sudah jadi viral kan. Akhirnya orang tak sembang pun pasal karya atau konsep dia, semiotik dan sebagainya. Orang sembang kan. Berapa, itu di dalam wacana publik. Kemudian dia wacana market pula. Oh, Ranjan sudah boleh buat duit. Oh, sebab dia viral. Kan? Kan? So, boleh main game tu. Kalau nak main game tu, mainlah kan. Tapi saya tak bodoh lah. Saya tahu orang lain. Kalau saya boleh cakap, saya tak bodoh. Jangan kata saya bodoh. Saya dah umur 56. Kan? Ranjan dah dekat 60. You're not stupid, you know. But sort of, okay, you play that game. Okay. No, I don't care. But when it comes to the academia, tu saya tak boleh buat apa-apa lah.
Itu lah.
Academia tu saya tak boleh buat apa-apa dan dia jadi satu macam angin kan. Tak tahu nak tanya lah siapa nama. Paiman pun dah keluar dah.
Paiman ada. I bincang dengan Paiman pun isu ni. Akademia like struggling. How to...
Ada sini ada. Dengar.
Ada Paiman ada.
Dia pun cakap kapal lorek takkan mengikuti susur Scopus ke Pekerjada kan. Okay, selamat maju jaya lah kan. Itu satu keberanian tu. Kan? Okey lah. Itu putusan lah. You decide kan. You want to do what kan.
Dia senang je keputusan. Fadli Sabran pun cakap, kau ada target nak jadi apa? Kau nak jadi profesor? Tak ada. Saya macam ni pun dah okey dah. Okey lah. Fine lah.
Pilihan kan. Pilihan kan. Cara dia nak letakkan diri dia kat mana kan.
Itulah tadi. Okey lah macam tu kan. Dah pilihan tu. Kita boleh buat manifesto sama.
Menarik. Banyak kemungkinan. Saya rasa pentingnya kalau kita cakap pasal legacy, orang-orang dalam umur macam korang jangan ingat umur kau berhenti kat situ je. Jadi umur macam saya boleh sedar diri. Jadi kena ada pelapis. Kan? Itu pandai-pandai you all lah. Mesti ada di kalangan. Itu mesti ada pelapis kan. So pelapis tu akan disperse all over. Dan mereka akan ada, I don't know, amalan mereka sendirilah kan. They will have their own niche. They will create their own niche. Whatever. Kan? Everybody ada dia punya own platform and so on so forth. Dia macam saya sekarang, Rupesh kau pergi ke bahagian-bahagian ujung. Ini orang lain tak tengok ni, tak sempat.
Ni tak sempat. I wanted to show the
That
location.
is a show actually. That is the
Tak
best
apa.
part.
Hanya mereka-mereka yang beriman saja boleh tahan kan.
So
Macam
the
Maruf
location
terus.
is important, I rasa. If we did an extensive work actually, this is part of a legacy lah, like really collecting,
Yeah,
building that narrative that we're talking about.
I was there in the show.
This one is documentation lah, documentation.
Documentation.
Saya cakap je besar, tapi saya sendiri pun sama juga. Pasal tu saya kena pesan dengan Paiman. Ini pun nasib baik Rupesh ada. Jadi Paiman dengan Fadli Syabran kena cari seorang pelapis yang kerja dia membuat dokumentasi macam ni. Kan?
This one is really, we did a proper work lah for we together lah, kita tiga, we really worked on it, put it in a proper frame. Importantly, we placed it in IZR. Itu penting. It's not a local narrative. It's like a regional, international level narrative.
Selepas ini siapa kapal lori itu dia ada punya publication. Tak kisahlah publication dia tidak mengikut format Scopus, dia popular publication pun okey. Dan it can go to many, jadi boleh jadi komik pun boleh. Macam-macam lah. Saya sangat suka bawa ke bawah ni. Itu memang permainan yang saya rasa tenang bila saya gunakan pendekatan bawa ke bawah ni. Saya rasa bahagia lah kan. That's why I do the project macam Hero. I don't know about cowboy.
Rupesh, go back to relocations lah. I want to say a couple of things at least for the record lah. Just the to show the level of commitment from Rupesh to develop this legacy kan. This is the section is legacy, right?
Yes.
So we did the traces kan. We created the work, but nobody was organizing it. Like we were talking about a centralized narrative, you know. So the center wasn't developing they published our stuff when we did it, but they didn't continue and generate, you know, further document that integrated it. And then just hanging kan from 2002, 2000 until Rupesh came and did this. And you know, he had to work with me in Canada, and you know, it's quite a challenging. I wasn't that interested, in fact, right? I wasn't that bothered also. So he has to do lots of motivational work on my side anyway. And so there's a lot of effort needed to bring this thing into reality, theoretical communication, and what you apa yang Hasnul cakap tadi, desire dalam bahasa Melayu,
kehendak
mesti ada kehendak. So how do we create somebody that wants to take our message forward that we have no control? I don't think we have control. But fortunately for us, somebody came.
Nasib. Itu kita rasa syukur.
Yeah, bersyukur. So but you know, that thing is done, right? It's done and it's there now. Just like how e-art was done, it's there. Anybody wants to look, they can look. Don't want to look, tak apa lah.
Tak apa, tak ada masalah. No problem. Pasal tu saya bagi pesanan kepada kawan-kawan yang baru buat dokumentasi. Kalau mereka macam katalah Pak Iman ke Fadli ke, kena ada student yang I don't know, buat dia punya master's project ke, even undergraduate punya degree. Of course lah level yang Rupesh buat ni, tak semua orang boleh jadi Rupesh kan, theoretically. Tapi around that level lah, at least ada documentation kan. Ada something yang orang boleh refer back. Sekarang ni ada e-book lagilah, senang.
Senang.
Lagi asalkan ada documentation. Jadi orang nak rujuk ke tak rujuk itu kita tak boleh control kan. Tapi kita sudah contribute in terms of the orang kata knowledge dalam bidang itu. Dan banyak yang kita buat tu mungkin ada impact. Kita tak tahu lagi. Betul tak? Kita tak tahu kan, macam sekarang masa saya dengan Niranjan mengajar. Kita tak tahu pun apa you all akan jadi. Paiman masa dia student tu, aku tak tahu pun dia akan jadi. Mana kita tahu. Nur Hanim Khairuddin, minta maaf lah dia tak ada dalam ni. Baguslah aku boleh gumpat dia. saya ajar dia untuk curate Rod McLeish punya show Culture in Context dekat Australia ICOM. Kau jadi assistant curator lah. Kita ajar dia waktu tu, dia pun segan-segan dan sebagainya. Kita tak tahu apa dia akan jadi. Tapi kita tengok sekarang. Kan? And Rupesh, of course, when you were doing the Soner Ratia thing, you were like, like some apa kata mana punya baga ni kan. Tapi kita pun tak tahu kan. Suddenly now you are like Deputy Dean of Mickey Mouse University. Bukan Multimedia University, sorry. So you don't know this for me this is certain thing yang saya nikmati lah. I want to enjoy that. Even though tak dapat kredit ke orang tak refer ke, but inilah saya punya KPI. Kau orang lah KPI aku kan. TC tak tahu apa dia jadi TC sekarang kan. Tapi apa saja yang dia dapat daripada saya, yang dia pakai ke dia tak pakai, itulah saya punya KPI. Lagi seronok saya tengok kan. Jadi manusia lah mak saya cakap.
Yalah.
Alhamdulillah lah tak masuk jail lah kan. Kan? Jangan jadi penjenayah sudah lah kan. Jadi itu pun sudah suka lah. Saya sudah suka. Kita kena buat lagi lah.
And this is the second installment from Rupesh lah.
Yeah. The review forward.
Tapi ini aku dendam sikit lah Ranjan. Sebab tak ada buku.
Ada Prof. I tengah buat.
Kau ada? Ada?
I'm doing it now.
Okay. Okay. Ada jawapan.
Kena Prof. All the effort I dah buat semua ni, I have to.
Kau jangan mepek. Ini kan, aduh. Ini lebih mulia daripada kau punya PhD. Tapi tak kisahlah. PhD macam makan bro, tak apalah. Kan? Tapi for me, this is what I call impact. Kan? Kita nak kena ada impact. You see, waktu kita buat ni pun you all buat kan. I have to acknowledge you guys lah. Tengok waktu penuh kan. Paiman ada, Pak Leman ada, virus, apa nama tu. Kan semua. Fuad, Arif semua kan. Tu. Ini macam ni lah. Kita contribute towards the scene kan. I like it. We should continue that. Recent one kau tak ambil adik kawan kau punya map. Peta seni media Malaysia untuk Niranjan tengok. Dekat balai.
I tak ambil tu.
Ambil lah tu. Ini
This one
Ranjan.
again part of the same review lah. Kita pergi Ipoh, kita pergi multimedia, kita beratang Penang.
Very good. I like this. Kizanat now dahsyat now tempat yang Ranjan pergi tu. Now ni dahsyat. Ipoh punya scene sangat.
Ipoh is even at that time was beginning kan?
Already there. Ipoh daripada Pekan Seni Ipoh dulu. Dia dah lama dah.
Ya, dah lama dah.
Itu geng-geng Hanim lah Ipoh kan. So very interesting. So we need to sort of fikirkan macam mana pendekatan terbaru dia kan. But then again tengok yang kemudian lah Ranjan buat cowboy, aku buat hero kan. Itu kan ini cerita sensitif lah bro.
Tapi I really hope that they will do a second one. I tengok macam kena ada follow up lah. Sayang lah dia buat satu kali je.
Okay, ini saya cerita sikit lah. Ada berapa orang ni? 13 orang. Okay, 13 orang yang okay lah. Ini ASEAN COCI. Geng-geng Bandung dapat bajet quite a lot lah untuk buat research on media arts in Southeast Asia. Bukan saya yang initiate ini Agong. Kau kenal Agong?
Ada dalam gambar tu.
Agong
on the right. On the left.
Agong. Okay. Dengan Krishnamurti. Anjing kenal kot. So dua orang otak ni. Krishnamurti dengan ni. Mereka dapat grant ASEAN COCI. Banyak lah. International grant kan. So mereka lantik lah regional country punya representative untuk tulis. Saya dapat untuk Malaysia kan. So saya buat lah. Saya buat panjang lah. Saya buat macam another PhD lah. But article version of electronic art in Malaysia lah kan. Kalau dulu electronic art nipis je kan ni order kan. Saya baca balik pun saya kata pening orang. Dia orang mahu pendek saja. Satu artikel pendek saja. Saya buat satu buku. Lepas tu mereka minta saya edit. Saya kata saya tak mahu lah. Saya pernah lah. You edit sendirilah kan. So I was supposed to do Brunei as well. So then I had the disagreement with them. I said don't include Brunei. But they want ASEAN COCI kan mesti ada Brunei. Saya kata buat apa kita ambil satu negara bila kita feature dia nampak inferior. Nanti saya tunjuk logo 3D berpusing untuk untuk apa I don't know berita dia. Itulah electronic art di Brunei. Tak best lah. Janganlah nanti orang ketawakan. Korang pun dah ketawakan Brunei. Tak boleh. Jadi saya pun kena diplomatik juga. Saya kata, tak boleh ni. Nanti Brunei nampak macam inferior compare tu orang lain yang canggih-canggih. Lebih baik kita kata tunggu dululah, dia belum lagi. So dia orang kata tak boleh. Dasar mereka UCI kan ASEAN. So, Brunei punya diplomatik punya menteri luar dia akan komplain. So tu saya punya ding-dong mereka macam apa benda mamat ni kau ajar kan. Nasib baik
Mungkin
mereka
dia bagi duit kau, Prof.
memanglah saya dapat duit. Saya dapat duit.
No, I mean Brunei is also partially paying for the
Mereka bayar
funding lah.
mereka bayar researcher dan writer. Saya tak bayar. Saya dah ada material tu kan. Jadi saya tulis je. Itu satu lah. Satu lagi saya tulis jadi buku panjang. Jadi macam Malaysia tu satu buku. Dia nak pendek-pendek je. Satu negara kan aku buat satu buku. Jadi satu isu lah ni kan. Jadi kalau boleh aku nak lupakan gambar ni. Tapi tapi geng ni penting ya. Saya panggil geng ni geng yang penting ya. Geng yang pertama kali di Southeast Asia ada media art punya group.
Itulah.
Kemudian yang terbaru Rupesh, engkau kena tahulah. Engkau dengan Paiman, siapa nama Fadli kena tahu. Asedas. ASEDAS. Asedas.
How?
Kau tak tahu?
AS?
Macam ada Adidas. Asedas. ASEDAS. ASEAN Digital Art Society.
Oh, tu yang is it the person in charge in UiTM lah?
Dengan Dr. Jasni kat USM. Okey, aku tanyalah apa benda Asedas ni. Dia tu ASEAN COCI juga. Aku rasa lah. Under ASEAN juga. Tak tahulah itu mandai lah. Okey, yang ini kita skip lah, pergi cerita lain lah bang.
Of course, and then Cowboy started lah.
Essay dia ada, Rupesh. Essay dia ada. Nanti aku tunjukkan kau itu kan. The history of Malaysian art until Malaysian electronic art until 2000 something. Ni cowboy lah. Cowboy. Kau kena tunjuk yang aku punya artikel pasal cowboy. Baliklah cowboy. Dalam internet tu, dalam blog aku. Kan? Baliklah. But anyway, this one on a much more, I don't know, different note lah kan. Niranjan, your parents came to me in my dream.
Yeah.
Belum lagi. Ada tu. Oh, this one also ada ni. I just the significance of this lah again.
This one. Unimas. Tapi kita tak ada siapa. Unimas hari ni siapa daripada Unimas? Tak ada. Ada. Unimas tak ada.
Unimas sekarang lah, like what they took, and also the significance of this picture lah, like the very first project mapping.
See when they gave me this keynote for IKK, kan? They gave me, I don't know macam mana boleh timbul nama saya, tak kisahlah. So I took it as a honor lah kan. I purposely brought the story of Niranjan's punya internet because they were talking about legacy. Dalam satu daripada tema dia adalah legacy.
Betul.
Takkan aku nak cakap pasal aku pula, angkat bakul pula kan. So I think and then I have a reason also. So I was presenting on that. Cuma itulah dia. Kita menanamnya di Unimas. Saya tak mau jadi judgemental lah terhadap Unimas. Tapi bagaimana mereka pick up. Ini the first projection mapping in Malaysia as far as I know. Rashid buat masters. Masa ni dia buat bachelors, lepas tu dia buat masters, dia buat projection mapping di bangunan sejarah. Tajuk dia menggunakan projection mapping untuk mengajar sejarah. Dan dia buat control test antara mereka yang guna buku dengan mereka yang guna projection mapping. Yang mana satu bila ditanya soalan sejarah boleh jawab dengan lebih tepat berkenaan dengan bangunan tu. Of course lah dia punya projection mapping orang boleh ingat kan. Anyway, saya nak bagi tahu lah yang pioneering ni sudah ada echo dia. Yang ini kita kena say thank you to Anwar lah. Anwar Ayub dengan anak-anak buah dia yang masih continue. Fauzan punya expanded media. Fauzan bawa expanded media dia ke Unimas. Itu kita kena menghargai dan perakui. Konsep expanded media ni expand the process of painting, printmaking, sculpture into another dimension, in another konteks kan. So penting kelas tu very innovative. Itu contribution Fauzan yang seharusnya diperakui. Ini pun satu dendam saya ya, cipta punya siri tidak dibukukan. Cipta.
Bukan ada ya Prof, ada katalog pencipta actually kan?
Ada lah tahunan punya tahap benda. Aku tak tahu lah, kau kena tanya lah
Oh.
orang wali-wali dekat UNIMAS sekarang kan. Saya tak berani mau cakap lah.
Okay. Then we go here lah. This is the one.
Ni sangat-sangat penting Saya pun tak tahulah kan. Mereka datanglah mimpi saya tapi senyum je. Dan lepas tu saya share lah mereka punya video, mereka punya gambar kan. Then after a week after that, pass away lah kan. So very strong lah connection dia kan. Itu we have to ini saya punya installation sebelah kanan tu. That was how my father remind us about time. Di atas TV tu diletakkannya jam loceng untuk menandakan waktu solat. So you lalai bila you tengok TV, you akan lalai, you akan tertinggal time untuk solat. So dia remind by putting on the TV set. It's the time for solat so that you don't lalai lah kan. For me, beautiful lah, halus lah kan. Dia secara jenaka pun ada, tumbuk secara dalam pun ada kan. Installation dia lagi menarik lah. Kemudian dia letak, ditampal kan waktu-waktu solat tu isyak, maghrib, subuh. Pakai marker, letak, tulis atas kertas, tampal atas television screen yang mahal tu. Flat screen tu. Mana mak saya tak mengamuk? Kan? Mak saya kata inilah seni kampung. Seni kampung punya otak. Otak dia otak kampung. Tak ada art langsung. Kan? Tapi my father was not interested with that. Okay. And then the Jawi text tu I trace back from his writing. Yang itu daripada hadis ke daripada Quran? Hadis rasanya. Sesungguhnya Allah tidak melihat rupamu dan hartamu. Dia melihat amalmu dan hatimu. Maknanya what you do and your honesty. Itu dia punya reminder. Pada saya. Penting lah kan. But this is the last version lah. This is the installation version of the hero lah. So hero ni totally different lah. I don't know lah. Boleh kena cerita lain lah bro ni. But I love it when I manage to sort of patah balik. Intertext dia dengan apa. Ini ni. Balik pada apa tadi.
Yeah.
Kan. Of course dua peristiwa yang berlaku di tempat lain. Yang itu dia tengah potong mangga. Ranjan lah dera dia.
Kelapa ni kelapa.
Kelapa kan. Orang tua tu kena buat performance Tapi ikut aja anak suruh kan. Ranjan lah anak aku yang aku kasihi. Dia suruh aku buat performance. Okey aku pun buatlah. Dia sama macam Rupesh paksa bapak dia menari lah. Aku tengok pun aku macam nak menangis pun ada. But it's beautiful lah. I don't know what to say lah. It's beautiful lah. It's beyond words lah kan. It's beyond art also. Kan?
Yeah, so the thought that I had about these last few images, Rupesh, go through the parents
the last one,
back and forth a bit. Yeah, these images. And back the other way.
This one?
Yeah, and go back slowly lah. 1, 2, just to see them all. And
this one, Ranjan sekejap Yang ini, yang atas tu, I think about a month, after my father passed away, I brought her home. For the first time, she came back to her house. 40 years, with my father. Had to go to Kuala Lumpur, stay in Kuala Lumpur, cannot come back. Even Hari Raya pun tak balik. So after my father passed away, I said, okay mak, saya bawa balik lah. Saya bawa you balik. Rumah dia kan, dia bina rumah ni dengan bapak saya kan. Of course, mesti ada macam-macam story dan kita tak tahu beyond me kan. So saya bawa. So ini dia tak pasang pun saya ambil gambar dia. But this is the time when I saw her totally lost. Aku pun dah takut because my mother is a very strong woman. She's very strong woman. I mean like she can handle pain like I don't know lah. Memang kepala dia ketika tu terbuka luka dia. Dia tidak mengerungut. Tapi this is the time where I saw aku dah takut dah. She was like lost. And the word that she said to me is like everything went black. And then when I go back to the room and I look at this empty sejadah. Sejadah ni macam lah, macam flying magic carpet kan, atau a door kan. Mana cakap dia buka something lain lah, something like inilah new media. Ini dia yang dikata madya tadi. Inilah kefahaman sebenarnya tentang apa yang dikatakan sebagai madya, medios, nadi tadi tu. Apa dia sebenarnya nadi kan. So then I saw, of course lah, ni Niranjan dengan mak dia kan. Benda-benda macam ni is sort of dia whack you punya intellectual capacity. Nak memandai-mandai kan. Macam mak kita ni kan. Okay, kau pandai kau pergi universiti kan. Kau belajar law kan. Tapi kau nak aku. Kan. Aku kena letak tambi tu kat situ. Tu kau kena tentuh aku punya kaki kan. Hujung kaki aku kan. So itu ada.
So the sort of the symbolic level and the formal level in the sense of category of action, right? So are we making art or are we just being human? It came up in the conversation, the humanity, and in a way, both of us have started together. It came together in the 90s. And that's only 6 years. But I think the way we approached the new media at that time, why we had a common approach is because our interest was beyond the media. Our concern was for something more universal.
Definitely.
And it was manifested in our interest in media. And now we've come away from each other for so long and working separately. Obviously, there's influence or connection. We've seen each other's work here and there, but we are doing something so similar without any communication. In the context of what we consider to be our practice of art, we include our life and our parents and the things that carry value, beyond the material. So I found that quite amazing, actually. Beyond our personal connection with each other, the work is also connected, right?
Yeah. Next slide.
Without us talking, also the work seems to be connected.
Next, another one, the last one. This one I have to share a bit, but of course I hope yang lain-lain tak marah lah saya share something quite personal lah. But my father was in hospital for 14 weeks lah. I mean, of course, I don't want to tell the whole story. Niranjan also went through the same thing. So when he woke up from dia punya coma, first thing he asked, because he could not speak, everything, all the wires and everything, he was quite angry lah. Dia tak boleh bercakap kan sebab dia suka bercakap. So he was asking for marker, and something to write on, telling the nurse. So the nurse brought the macam board tempat untuk tulis kan, dengan kertas dengan marker merah, and he wrote this one. Of course dia tak dengar dan dia dah very weak kan, baru sedar. The first thing he wrote, panggil isteri saya. Jadi saya my father and my mother towards the end tak pernah cakap I love you honey, I cinta you, bye-bye sayang. Tak ada tau. Saya dibesarkan dengan mak saya membebel dengan bapa saya. Tak ada cinta-cinta tu kan. Mungkin masa mereka, saya kecil mungkin ada lah. Tapi saya tak dibesarkan begitu. And my father was scolded banyak kali lah oleh mak saya. But dia pernah pesan dengan saya, orang lelaki, orang yang kuat adalah orang yang dapat menahan kesabaran. Kan? Sebab saya kaki marah kan. So this is what he wrote. Panggil isteri saya. The next one is salam kepada anak-anak. So I think this is legacy lah. Sebelum dia mati kan. Dia nak ingatkan kita kan. At the end of the day, apa dia? Ini beberapa hari lepas ni dia meninggal lah. So it was the last thing that he wrote. Dan saya trace balik lah. Ini dia anak cucu dia, anak saudara saya simpan. Anyway, for me it's very important. Again, so when I look at apa nama ni, mungkin lah muka lain, bangsa lain, I don't know, duduk pun tempat lain kan. Tapi yang sangat terpukul lah bila Niranjan, aku jumpa dia, Niranjan kat sini, Iskandar kan, dengan Paiman lah. Aku tanya, Niranjan kan, Niranjan, kau tak bawa mak dengan bapak kau dekat Canada ke, Vancouver, kau tinggal di orang tua kan, apa jadi nanti jatuh ke apa kan. Tu Niranjan cakap, mereka dua ni tak nak pergi tapi sekejap-sekejap nak balik. Sebab mereka tak mau mati kat negara orang, mereka nak mati di negara sendiri, di tanah air sendiri. Jadi bagi saya bila Ranjan cakap tahu korang Ranjan was saying it in a very casual way. But you know was very strong. Dia pukul kita punya ego. Kan tambah lagi bila kita bercakap berkenaan kita sudah reduce manusia into category. And we have been talking about it for 60 years. We have reduced human being into categories. And whether we are for it or against it, we are actually kita sama juga, kita bermain dengan kategori itu. Sehingga kita lupa, kita bercakap pasal manusia. Jadi benda-benda macam ni yang menyebabkan saya, So, saya rasa satu cara untuk kita berdepan dengan kategori dengan cara yang tidak dramatik, banyak kontroversi daripada menyelesaikan, adalah benda-benda macam ni lah. Kasih sayang yang pukul you kan, berdampak bagi sebiji kan. Yang tu saya tak boleh nak explain lah. Tu, and then the fact that I don't know lah for Niranjan when your father passed, your mother passed away, and then I think I don't know a week after that.
Yeah, 6 or 7 days. 6 days. I think.
6 or 7 days. So your mother was taking care of your father. He was in hospital. Then you couldn't come back. I don't know. Maybe they came to my dream because they.
No, mother first. Mother
first. Yeah. But before my mother passed away, both of them came. They just smile. Probably they wanted me to say, hey, tell Niranjan come back. I don't know. I don't know. Bro. This is the different dimension kind of thing, But this is, inilah media, kita katakan mediator kan. Nadi, pertautan. Kan. Jadi pertautan tu pertautan yang merentasi jasad dan badan. Yang sebenarnya hanya ilusi saja kalau kita lihat dari sudut quantum. Itulah juga pembentangan saya waktu conference yang Rupesh pergi tu. Sapas tu kan. Yang kita jangan terperangkap dengan itu. Memang saya faham macam Niranjan cakap. Kita memang kena raikan keperbezaan kita itu. Pasal Tuhan buat dalam surah Hujarat dalam Quran kan. Manusia itu dijadikan berbeza-beza. Kenapa kita tak celebrate? Kita celebrate lah. So kalau you bunga raya, tak payahlah you nak jadi bunga melur pula. You jadilah bunga raya. Ni masalahnya dah bunga raya jadi bunga lain. That's because the diversity is already there. So we have to enjoy it. But at the same time, we have to be able to see beyond it. And sometimes we have to be whacked with something that's so strong. Yeah? Saya, when my father passed away, like whacking big time. It was my Yoda kan. So when it come to Niranjan time, I don't know lah. Itu Niranjan cerita lah. Aku pun tak berani nak cerita lah kan. Aku tak boleh fikirkan boleh hilang ibu lepas tu, tak lama lepas tu bapa pula. Of course lah kan, dia mungkin energi dia pun kata, okay lah, my wife sudah pergi, saya pergi sajalah. But for me, itu connection tu. And I felt that connection very strong. And this connection is the one that hold us together. And we have to go back to this connection. And our narrative is about this connection. And we have to empower this narrative. And this connection is also the same as our connection with nature. Kalau kita tak ada connection macam itu yang kita pergi jahanamkan nature, kita sungai pun pergi jahanamkan. Cuma kalau kita cakap sungai itu ibu pertiwi, kita cemarkan dia, kita cemarkan ibu kita. Kita merosakkan ibu kita sendiri. Tak ada masalah dari segi konsep tu. Patutnya kita pakailah konsep tu. Kalau kita gunakan saintifik sangat pun, bukan boleh berkesan. Cakap dari segi saintifik sangat, kadang tak berkesan pun. Pasal tu kita kembali balik kepada naratif dan juga kota kasa. Saya panggil tata bahasa seperti tanah air. Kan? Halus ni perkataan ni. Memerhati itu pun memerikan hati. Dan banyak perkataan-perkataan ni asal tu Sanskrit. Kita kena faham. Bukan, kita jangan politik perkataan tu juga. But for me, what is important is beyond the perkataan. What it suggests, tanah. Kenapa panggil tanah air? Kenapa panggil ibu kota? Dia tak panggil capital. Kan? Orang barat panggil capital, modal. Itu sendiri sudah tunjuk kepala otak dia kan. kita panggil ibu kota. Dia, ibu siapa ni? Ibu Niranjan, ibu saya, ibu semua orang. Kenapa kita tak perkasa kan? Itu yang saya cuba buat dengan KL belas. Tak jadi, aku kena belasah bro. Tanya Niranjan. Kan? Aku nak buat belas, lepas tu tiba-tiba karya siapa? Siapa punya karya? Syed Ahmad Jamal kena belasah, kena pecah. Oleh Dewan Bandaraya. Sepatutnya saya pergi ke Dewan Bandaraya untuk membentangkan konsep belas saya. Saya kena bekerja dengan Kuala Lumpur, KL DB KL untuk memasarkan Kuala Lumpur sebagai kota raya belas. Sekali dia hancurkan karya Syed Ahmad Jamal, artis semua sudah marah dan tak jadilah. Itulah dianya kan. Okay lah bro.
Yeah, I mean the space between life and art, and I think that's what we are both dealing with at this stage in our practice or in our life. That in different ways we are trying to bridge. For me, it's through narrative, right? So the narrative of myself, my family, and the narrative of my art is merging. It's my cowboy persona is actually partly my real persona. I don't simply put it on for the camera. I actually live that way, and my family have been part of my work and part of my symbols for representation, and the blurring is important. And I think you two are working in a different way with the same space of creating symbols through your life, something like that. I believe, and for you, I think spreading the message or education seems to be very important too, right?
Yeah, man. Have to, man. At this age. Hey, bro, pukul 1 lah.
Tu lah, dah pukul 1 ni.
Alright lah.
Semua orang
Ranjan dia sudah pagi, dia sudah
itu
cergas.
dia sudah petang, dia go for lunch. Kita kena tidur ni.
Kena tidur kan. Sebab kita ni ke tikus-tikus eksperimen. So, okay lah bro Ranjan.
Okay, Hasnul, this great fun. Rupesh,
Right.
thank you so much. And whoever's still sticking with us, amazing. So nice that you're here. Paiman, siapa lagi? Aloy is still there.
Paiman sudah tidur. TC
semua. Paiman sudah belah.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone.
Terima kasih lah. Okay.
Good night.
Dr. Bahar, thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Right, thanks.
Good morning to you, Rajan.
Good morning.
I mean, good morning also.
Ya, betul. Okay, semua ya, terima kasih. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, see you guys.
See you, brother.
Alright.
Afnizam, I just keluar je